Chapter 528. Shi Tianhao stood beside Lin Feng silently. His figure had already started to gradually grow taller. His face was still delicate, but the childishness had already started to fade. The youth that wasn't even 13 years old already had an extraordinary aura. No one dared to look down on him. When Shi Zongyue and the others looked over, they could see that he had the same golden elixir late-stage cultivation as Xiaoyan. However, his magic power was vast. Although it wasn't as violent as Xiaoyan's, it was more vigorous. He couldn't be measured by the standard of a golden elixir period cultivator, especially when the clouds around his body gave birth to a strange phenomenon. It was as if a layer of fog was shrouding him, making him seem unfathomable. His black and white eyes were overflowing with spirit energy, and there was even a faint, mysterious divine light flashing. Xiaoyan took off the dragon god heavenly armor and had already returned to Lin Feng's side. Shi Tianhao looked at him, and the two smiled at each other. Shi Tianhao is a natural-born sovereign. After suffering a tribulation and being reborn, will he surpass his original height? Even Shi Zingyue, northern militant Yuxian prince, and the other primordial spirit big shots had to face the tiny Shi Tianhao now. When Shi Tianhao was at the golden elixir middle stage, he had already brazenly killed a Yuanying middle stage opponent. Now that he had advanced to the golden elixir late stage, would he be like Xiaoyan and not even care about the heaven and earth manifestation of an ordinary late stage Yuanying cultivator? What made everyone shiver was that they gradually discovered that while the disciples of Xianmin Tianzong could look down on their opponents of the same realm, the higher their realm, the greater the gap between them and the cultivators of other forces. During the golden elixir early stage, Xiaoyan and Shi Tianhao could only rely on Yuanying magic tools to fight evenly with an early stage Yuanying cultivator. However, in the middle stage of the golden elixir, Shi Tianhao was able to kill enemies in the middle stage of the Yuanying at the cost of being seriously injured during the Battle of Kunlun Mountain. By the time he reached the later stages of the golden elixir, Xiaoyan would already be able to kill most of the later stages of the Yuanying realm. There were very few people below the primordial divinity realm who could fight him one-on-one. Normally, when a cultivator's cultivation level increased by one realm, their strength would also increase. However, every time a disciple of Xianmin Tianzong advanced by one realm, their strength would undergo an earth-shattering change. The difference was so great that it was shocking. When they found out that Shi Tianhao had formed Yuanying before the age of 17, a group of people gasped in admiration. It was not only because Shi Tianhao was young at the nascent soul stage, but also because Shi Tianhao's past experience showed that he was also a super genius like Xiaoyan and Shi Tianhao, whose actual combat strength could surpass realms. His success in forming his nascent soul also meant that there were few opponents in the entire Yuanying realm. Even if an ordinary late-stage Yuanying patriarch revealed his Dharma idol, they would still not be his opponent. Such a proud son of heaven was indeed worthy of the title of heaven's chosen son of heaven. However, when Shi Tianhao stood side by side with Xiaoyan silently beside Lin Feng, a thought emerged in everyone's mind at the same time. Even so, can that big stone really defeat this small stone? If the small stone is as strong as that Xiaoyan, can the big stone defeat him? Shi Tianhao's expression was calm, and his clear voice echoed between heaven and earth. Xianmin Tianzong disciple Shi Tianhao wishes to have a battle with Shi Tianhao, a disciple of Taishu Temple. My little brother, do you dare to have a battle with me? Do you dare to have a battle with me? Do you dare to have a battle with me? A smile appeared on Lin Feng's face. Purple chi floated around his body, and under the effect of his magic power, Shi Tianhao's voice was transmitted in all directions, transmitted between the vast heaven and earth. Whether it was a cultivator with cultivation or a mortal without, everyone could clearly hear his voice. Shi Tianhao, this was equivalent to issuing a challenge to Shi Tianhao in front of everyone. Under Lin Feng's control, his voice passed through layers of space and reached the ancestral land of the Shi clan, the capital of the Great Qin dynasty, West Hill City, and the small mountain village where Shi Tianhao had been fostered in the past, Within the imperial palace of West Hill City, Qin Emperor Shi Yu and Prime Minister Wu Qingru sat facing each other. After a moment of silence, Shi Yu released the magic power restriction of West Hill City, allowing Shi Tianhao's voice to spread throughout the entire city. Wu Qingru's expression was tranquil, but his eyes constantly flickered, as if he was calculating something. Shi Tianhao's voice finally reached the mountain gate of the Taishu Temple, White Cloud Mountain. White Cloud Mountain was covered in white clouds all year round, and no one could see what was inside. Shi Tianhao's voice rang out 3 times outside White Cloud Mountain, and the white clouds suddenly opened up a path, allowing Lin Feng's purple qi to carry Shi Tianhao's voice into the mountain. Under the guidance of the white clouds, the purple qi arrived within a blessed land. Seeing this, Xianlin Taoist frowned slightly. Yin Nanlai. He did not say anything more, and a divine light shot out from his eyes, breaking through space and arriving within the cave of White Cloud Mountain. The surrounding spectators were all shocked. Xianlin Taoist's action was equivalent to accepting the challenge of master and disciple Lin Feng. Divine light appeared, and white clouds rose within the cave, revealing the figure of a youth. He was about 16 or 17 years old, and he was currently sitting cross-legged in meditation. He was tall and slender, with long black hair hanging down to his shoulders. His face was handsome, and his eyes were closed. Clumps of white clouds constantly circled around him. Within the white clouds, countless talisman characters appeared, condensing into golden figures that floated within the white clouds. Behind the northern militant Yuxian prince, a group of northern militant cultivators had serious expressions. This is the dual-pupiled person, Shi Tianyi. The purple qi brought Shi Tianhao's voice to the cave. "My little brother, do you dare to fight with me?" Hearing this, the youth in the white clouds still had his eyes closed. He tilted his head slightly. "My good little brother, long time no see. Has your body recovered?" This godlike youth was the dual-pupiled person, Shi Tianyi. Ever since his debut, he had been recognized as the most outstanding genius of the younger generation, shaking the entire heaven primal world. He was destined to leave his name in the history books, becoming a legendary figure. Silently, Shi Tianhao looked at Shi Tianyi in the image, and his gaze became deep and calm. Although Shi Tianyi's tone was gentle and even a bit intimate, he could hear a kind of confidence and carelessness in it. In his carelessness, there was even a faint sense of ridicule. Stealing the little Shi Tianhao's supreme Dao foundation and becoming his own peerless genius, Shi Tianyi did not seem to feel any guilt at all. He only had confidence and calmness. Shi Tianhao looked at the person in the image. It was this person who had seen through his supreme Dao foundation and then asked his mother to find someone to steal his Dao foundation and transfer it to him. This was why there were so many hardships after that. "My little brother, what? Do you only dare to hide in White Cloud Mountain?" Shi Tianyi casually replied, "It's been many years. I wonder if it's time for us to meet again." The implication was that after Shi Tianhao had lost the supreme spirit platform in the past, he did not even have the value to look at him again. Shi Tianhao looked at Shi Tianyi, who still had his eyes closed, and said indifferently, "If you were in front of me now, you would never have to open your eyes again. You only dare to hide in White Cloud Mountain and talk big. If we were face to face, I would directly kill you and make you close your eyes forever. Since that's the case, then let's meet." Slowly, Shi Tianyi finally opened his eyes. Suddenly, divine light shot out in all directions. There were 2 pupils in each of his eyes, like the sun and the moon in the sky. Countless divine lights flashed in those pupils, containing a power that made people's hearts palpitate. Even Prince Yuxian, Lord Xingdou, Lord Gambling, and the others saw this pair of pupils, and their expressions became a bit more serious. He has only just formed his nascent soul. If he is allowed to continue to improve, Shi Zhongyue's expression was complicated. "I finally see him again. Compared to before, it really is an earth-shaking change. And it's not just his double pupils that have changed, there are also other changes." Shi Zhongyue keenly noticed that in addition to the light of the sun and the moon in Sher Tiany's double pupils, there was also a strange divine light flashing. Sher Tiany formed his nascent soul, and the power of his double pupils increased by another level. But in addition to this, there were even more changes. He obtained the supreme Tao foundation that originally belonged to Sher Tianhao. On this foundation, he formed the golden elixir, and then formed his nascent soul, and he could obtain the great divine ability of the creation of heaven and earth. That was a power that only belonged to those who had a supreme spirit platform and formed a supreme pill cauldron, and it could only be truly manifested after forming his nascent soul. The proud son of heaven inherited the power of heaven and earth and turned it into his own infinite divine ability. Blessed by heaven, truly blessed by heaven, Sher Tiany first looked at Xianlin Taoist and the female cultivator of Taishu Temple through the magic power of light and shadow. Greetings, martial uncles. Then his gaze stopped on Lin Feng for a moment, and the four pupils in his eyes flashed together. But he felt that Lin Feng's body seemed to be covered by a layer of fog, and his pair of divine pupils actually hit a wall. Lin Feng faintly glanced at him, and Sher Tiany's heart trembled. He withdrew his gaze, and only then did his line of sight shift to Sher Tianhao. His eyes shone again, and he calmly looked at the little Sher Tianhao. My good little brother, not bad. You really surprised me. Sher Tianhao and Sher Tiany stared at each other. His gaze became more and more calm, and his whole spirit and temperament were changing, as if he was going through a transformation. My little brother, there's no need to say any unnecessary words between us. When we fight, Sher Tiany faintly said, you're not bad now, but it's still not enough. Continue to cultivate. Let me see, have you really gone through nirvana again? I don't know if you know that the cultivators who really have the supreme Tao foundation can only show their true elegance after forming the Yuanying period. I've already formed my nascent soul, and you're still in the golden elixir period. It's too boring to fight with you now. I'll wait for you in the Yuanying period. Sher Tianhao's tone was as light as the clouds and as light as the wind. Yuanying period. If I reach the Yuanying period, then the fight between you and me will be really boring. In the same realm, except for my fellow disciples in Xianmin Tianzong, I'm invincible. His voice wasn't loud, and his tone was very calm, but it revealed a lot of domineering confidence. He was even more confident than the dual-pupiled person, Sher Tiany. How about you form the Yuanying period? So what if you have dual pupils? So what if your supreme Tao foundation is starting to show its brilliance? It's precisely because I'm in the golden elixir period and you're in the Yuanying period that I'm fighting with you. If I also reach the Yuanying period, you're not worth mentioning at all. Fighting with you in the same realm, I'm bullying you. Sher Tiany's expression finally changed a bit, and he very seriously looked at Sher Tianhao. My little brother, you and your fellow disciples are all too self-righteous. Sher Tianhao shook his head and bluntly asked, don't talk about other nonsense. I just want to ask you one thing. Fight with me. Do you dare or not? Chapter 529. Sher Tianhao was younger, but his bearing was even more domineering. Don't give me that useless crap. I'll only ask you one question. Are you bold enough to fight me? Are you bold enough, or are you afraid? Sher Tiany stared at Sher Tianhao with his double pupils. He originally sat among the white clouds and golden light, but now he slowly stood up. With that, the white clouds and golden light all shook up, as if a young god had stood up. If you want to fight, then let's fight. Anytime, anywhere. Sher Tianhao smiled faintly. Right now, right here. I'll wait for you. I'd like to see whether you have the courage to leave White Cloud Mountain or not. At this moment, the sky to the east of the ancestral grounds of the Yu family suddenly shook. Golden light flickered there, and five-colored light seeped through the golden light. The figure of a golden dragon flickered. The Emperor's stone feather had not come personally, but he had projected a clone over with his powers. Two young prodigies. You've not even reached the age of 20, yet you possess startling cultivation. The bloodline of my Shur clan flows through your veins. Your battle is both a pity for my great Qin Empire, but it's also a grand occasion. We need a suitable stage. Stonefeather's voice echoed through the surroundings. In a month's time, the Dragon Arena in the ancient Sky Dragon region of my great Qin Empire will be open to you. The Dragon Arena has a dragonstone gate. Only young descendants below the age of 20 who possess the bloodline of my Shur clan can engage in an intense battle, and the power produced from their collisions can open the gate. There are a large number of treasures in the Dragonstone Gate. The victor among you can enter the Dragonstone Gate. Startling light erupted from the eyes of both Shur Tianhao and Shur Tianyi. The Anliang King, Shur Zongyue's expression changed slightly. Your Majesty, the Sword Elder and Thundercloud Immortal behind Lin Feng, the Star Dipper and Gambling Dipper beside Shur Zongyue, and the northern militant Yuxian Prince were all surprised. As the oldest empire of cultivators in the Divine Land, one of the foundations of the Great Qin Empire in the past was the ancient Sky Dragon region. It was rumored to be the habitat of the archaic heavenly dragons in the Archaic era. Afterwards, the spiritual qi there changed, and it was no longer suitable for the archaic heavenly dragons to inhabit. The dragons moved away immediately, searching for another suitable environment. However, it was an extremely suitable place for humans to cultivate, and there were many treasures left behind by the heavenly dragon. The founding monarch of the Great Qin dynasty relied on resources, such as the ancient Sky Dragon domain, to establish the Great Qin dynasty, expand its territory, and flourish to this day. There was a dragon arena in the ancient Sky Dragon domain, which was where the Dragon Clan dueled in the past. It was also the current core region of the ancient Sky Dragon domain. The ancestors of the Great Qin dynasty once had an almighty divine ability cultivator that set up a restriction here for the sake of encouraging his descendants to work hard. It required two people to fight each other, and the force of the collision would only be able to open the restriction. This restriction was called the Dragonstone Door. Behind the Dragonstone Door was an alternate dimension that Great Qin's ancestor had opened up, and within it were large amounts of rare treasures. In order to open the Dragonstone Gate, both sides had to fulfill three conditions. Firstly, both of them had to be descendants of the Shur clan. Secondly, both parties were under the age of 20. Thirdly, everyone's strength must be strong enough. How powerful would he have to be? There was no definite answer, but from ancient times until now, over 10,000 years, the Dragonstone Gate had only been opened twice. In the recent thousands of years, it had never been opened. It was rare enough to have one young prodigy, let alone two. But now, the conditions have been met again. Shur Tianyi, less than 17 years old, was at the early Yuanying stage and had a supreme Dao foundation at the foundation establishment stage. He had double pupils and was like a deity that had descended to the world. Since his debut, he had been regarded as the strongest of the younger generation and would eventually become a legendary figure. Shur Tianhao, less than 13 years old, was already at the late Golden Elixir stage. After his supreme Dao foundation was stolen by Shur Tianyi, he was reborn and rose again. At the middle Golden Elixir stage, he killed the Yu clan's middle Yuanying stage ancestor, shocking the entire Divine Land. Both of them were from the Shur clan, which was a branch of the Great Qin dynasty's imperial family. Although their bloodline was a bit distant, they still had the bloodline of the Great Qin dynasty's ancestors. Old Sword Immortal and Dao Master Thundercloud looked at each other, thinking at the same time, no matter who wins or loses, the Qin Emperor has made a good deal. It's just that this battle has already attracted the attention of the world, and now it will attract even more attention. The space on the other side split open, and the Shur clan's patriarch, Shur Wu, slowly walked out, but Zen Master Dade had disappeared. The Yu clan had been destroyed, and Zen Master Dade had completed his mission. He no longer needed to tangle with Shur Wu, so he had already returned to Yujing Mountain. Shur Wu's face was as gloomy as water. His gaze fell on the two brothers, Shur Tianyi and Shur Tianhao, and he did not speak for a long time. At this moment, Shi Wu had no time to think about what effect Qin Emperor Shi Yu's decision would have on the Shi clan, and what effect it would have on the great Qin dynasty's sweeping purge of the aristocratic families. Ever since he had reached the primordial soul realm, Shi Wu had rarely been absent-minded. However, at this moment, when he looked at Shi Tianhao and Shi Tianyi, he was absent-minded for a moment. They were originally his Shi clan's disciples. Shi Tianhao and Shi Tianyi looked at each other, and after a long time, they nodded at the same time. "I'll be waiting for you in a month." The group of primordial soul realm experts looked at the two brothers with complicated gazes. In their long lives, they had seen too many geniuses, so many that they felt numb to them and would no longer be moved by them. Without achieving golden elixir, one's lifespan would be less than 100 years. Without yuanying, one's lifespan would be less than 1,000 years. Without attaining primordial soul, after 60 years, everything would be for naught. Not to mention dying prematurely and being killed by others. However, the big stone and little stone in front of them were still able to amaze them. The big one had a heavy and majestic aura, and his heroic spirit was bursting forth from within. He had already formed a momentum that could soar into the sky. The small one was still somewhat immature, but he displayed an even more terrifying momentum. Not long ago, he was a young child on the verge of death, but now he had already brazenly caught up to his opponent, glaring at them like a tiger watching its prey. The gazes of Shi Zhengyue and the others turned to look at Lin Feng, who was dressed in a purple robe and had an indifferent expression. There was even a hint of a smile on his face. Everyone then looked at Xiao Yin, who was standing beside Lin Feng and Shi Tianhao. He was also a peerless genius who was not inferior to Shi Tianhao at all. As the eldest disciple of the sect leader under Lin Feng, Xiao Yan's status could not be said to be low, but in the eyes of the world, he was not as dazzling as his junior brothers Zhu Yi and Shi Tianhao. On one hand, it was because Zhu Yi and Shi Tianhao had a special family background. On the other hand, it was because Xiao Yin had been secluding himself in Yujing Mountain for a long time. Ever since the battle outside the Sand Continent City and the fierce battle with the crown prince of the Qin dynasty, Shi Chongyun, on the cloud-traversing peak, Xiao Yin had disappeared from people's sight. Like a fleeting flower, a shooting star streaked across the sky. After that, he did not participate in the wildernessy assembly, nor did he participate in the battle of Kunlun Mountain. He also did not participate in the exploration of the Kunpeng's hidden treasure. Not only did he miss a series of important events in Xianmen Tianzong, he did not even show his face in front of outsiders. It was to the extent that a few people even thought that Zhu Yi was the eldest disciple of Xianmen Tianzong. Even Wang Lin, who had accumulated a lot of experience and suddenly rose from the early stage of foundation establishment to the early stage of golden elixir, attracted more attention than Xiao Yin in the end. Just like that, the eldest disciple under Lin Feng gradually quietened down. Until today, when Xiao Yin suddenly reappeared in the world, like a tyrant who had awakened from his slumber. With his own strength, he overturned everyone in the Yu clan except for the primordial divinity expert, Yu Xintao. It was almost as if he had single-handedly wiped out the Yu clan. Such a performance caused even a group of primordial divinity experts to raise their eyebrows. Looking at him and Shi Tianhao, everyone looked at Lin Feng again, and their expressions suddenly became even more solemn. To be able to teach such a disciple, and not just one or two, he still has other personal disciples under him. At this moment, Lin Feng looked calmly at Xianlin Taoist and said lightly, "In that case, I will wait and see together with your noble sect." This can also be considered as the first disciple exchange between Xianmen Tianzong and your noble sect. We will see each other in a month. When the image of Shi Tianyi was brought over, Xianlin Taoist's expression had completely recovered. Silently, his eyes looked at Lin Feng and said, "Everything will be revealed in a month." The image of Shi Tianyi disappeared, and Xianlin Taoist's body also gradually disappeared into the void. The female cultivator of Taishu Temple beside him sighed and also disappeared. Xianming Dao Master Yu Xintao's face was ashen. He stared straight at Lin Feng and did not say a word. The destruction of the original spirit of the Xianming treasure was equivalent to the destruction of the masterless Xianming Bao. Xiaoyan had just used his dragon god heavenly armor to silently take it. Lin Feng looked at Yu Xintao indifferently. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the Xianming Bao that was still vibrating. Immediately, the Xianming Bao lost its vitality and was suppressed by Lin Feng's Fa Li until it became obedient. Blood appeared in Yu Xintao's eyes, and his expression was frighteningly gloomy. However, he was unable to take back his Dharma treasure, and could only retreat behind Xianlin Taoist and the others. Yu Xintao, who allowed you to leave? At this moment, Lin Feng's voice sounded faintly in the air. Yu Xintao's body stiffened. Xianlin Taoist frowned and looked expressionlessly at Lin Feng. Lin Feng did not care and looked back at him. As if talking to himself, he said, "Some people can leave, and some can't." Hearing these words, which did not seem to be directed at Yu Xintao, Xianlin Taoist's eyes flashed slightly. Lin Feng did not look at him anymore. Instead, his gaze swept across the Yu clan's ancestral grounds, which had already turned into ruins. There were still some Yu clan members left there. "I'm not bloodthirsty." The Yuaning cultivators of the Yu clan who surrounded and attacked my disciple Tianhao's family have all been killed. The rest of the Yu clan members will not be affected, Lin Feng said faintly. But remember, those who offend my Xianmin Tianzong will be killed no matter how far away they are. He looked at Yu Xintao. Yu Xintao, I have already let you off once on Kunlun Mountain. This time, you'll not be able to leave. The female cultivator from the Taishu temple frowned and said, "You have already destroyed the Yu clan's Xianming treasure book and destroyed the Yu clan's ancestral grounds. Any enmity should be settled. If you continue to be so overbearing, it is too much. It is not easy for Lord Xianming to attain the primordial soul. Any primordial soul cultivator is extremely precious to the human cultivation world. Why does the master of the Xianmen have to kill them all?" Lin Feng smiled faintly. To fight against the demon clan, it is indeed necessary to unite the many experts of the human race. It is for the sake of unity that I have said this. He pointed at the gloomy Yu Xintao. In the future, when the two worlds go to war, I do not want someone to stab me in the back. I am not afraid, but I do not like it, Lin Feng said calmly. So, if there's a problem, I will solve it now. Chapter 530. Xianlin Taoist silently looked at Lin Feng, a divine light flashing in his eyes. "Master of the celestial sect of wonders, you've crossed the line." Lin Feng smiled carelessly. "The line drawn by others doesn't mean that it's my line." As he spoke, Lin Feng didn't stand on ceremony. He stretched out his palm toward Yu Xintao in the distance and gently clenched his fist. "Smash the universe." The void in front of Lin Feng suddenly shattered into a wasteland. The chaotic flow of earth, water, fire, and wind surged violently, turning into a turbulent flow that impacted the entire world. Yu Xintao's expression changed slightly. This spell of Lin Feng's was extremely fierce. If he was at his peak, he might have had a chance to protect himself by relying on the Xianming treasure book. But now that the Xianming treasure book was destroyed and he was seriously injured, he could only wait for death in the face of Lin Feng's smash the universe. A round light spot appeared on Xianlin Taoist's forehead, like a small round mirror. This round mirror was shining brightly, like the sun shining on all things. Taishu Temple's spell, the great void heaven illuminating mirror technique. The mirror light was like the eye of heaven, watching the entire world. There was no sadness, no joy, no anger, no resentment. It was tranquil and peaceful, but controlled everything and dominated everything. It was as if the heavenly Tao was above, with boundless love, but also emotionless and without desire, calmly watching all living beings. Under the gaze of this gaze, everything seemed to be watched by the will of the great Tao, deterred, and dared not act rashly. Even the frantic flow of earth, water, fire, and wind, under the illumination of the mirror light, were gradually frozen, unable to cause trouble. Lin Feng's expression didn't change. He smiled slightly and changed the seal on his right hand. An invisible, formless, shadowless, and colorless storm suddenly swept the world. For symbols, heaven opening book, wind, divine wind. The world changes in an instant. A flash of light has passed for 1,000 years. As Lin Feng let out a long chant, the scene in the void suddenly changed. The mirror light of the great void heaven illuminating treasured mirror actually disappeared. Lin Feng shattered the cosmos, and the chaos turned into earth, water, fire, and wind that went berserk once again. It wasn't that Lin Feng had broken Xianlin Taoist's cosmic heaven illuminating treasured mirror technique, but that his cosmic light, divine wind, had reversed the flow of time and dissolved the cosmic heaven illuminating treasured mirror technique. The violent turbulence was like the end of the world as it continued to rush towards Yuxin Tao. Xianlin Taoist shook his head slightly, his left hand formed a seal, and a boundless hex power surged. The spell of the Taishu Temple, time recollection. Under the effect of Xianlin Taoist's magic power, the flow of time between heaven and earth suddenly returned to the moment when the Taishu heaven illuminating treasure mirror technique froze the earth, water, fire, and wind. Under the effect of time recollection, Xianlin Taoist erased the effect of Lin Feng's cosmic light, divine wind. This spell of his was actually the nemesis of the cosmic light, divine wind. In a short moment, the scene between heaven and earth changed continuously, and the onlookers were amazed. Lin Feng and Xianlin Taoist, in the time it took for ordinary people to react, had already crossed swords many times. Both sides were making a fuss about the mystery of time, and neither side was giving way to the other. At the same time, Lin Feng and Xianlin Taoist both made new moves. Xianlin Taoist's left eye suddenly burst with a fierce brilliance, and a transparent jade with a surface of 1,000 prism flew out. Countless rays of brilliance refracted and immediately protected Yuxin Tao, covering him in thousands of layers of space. These layers of space overlapped and fell together like mirrors. Every mirror had Yuxin Tao's existence, and the void and reality coexisted with each other, changing endlessly. This was his own magic treasure, the 1,000-prism flowing light mirror, which created thousands of planes of time and space at the same time. The thousands of illusions were all real, but they could also become fake in the next instant. And on the opposite side, Lin Feng raised his hand, and a purple flag that emitted a rainbow light flew into midair. Beside the purple flag, there was a huge black stone tablet, and on the surface of the stone tablet were the words, Eternal Night. Seeing this, Xianlin Taoist frowned slightly. Night Demon Sex Eternal Night Devil Steel? This magic treasure has been missing for tens of thousands of years. Wait, could it be that Golden Rock and Xiong Qi found it? And, as a treasure to set up the 9 glory sky-shattering array, it fell into your hands in the cloudy forest world? Lin Feng smiled, but didn't reply. Under the activation of his magic power, the Eternal Night Devil Steel was silent, as if it didn't move at all. However, a power concept that could suppress all things and cause everything in the world to fall into a deep slumber instantly spread out. The world seemed to suddenly turn dark. There was no sound, no light, no sense of the existence of space, and no sense of the flow of time. It was as if there was no light, a world that had fallen into eternal darkness, a world that was in a deep slumber. Under the effects of the Eternal Night Devil Steel, the 1,000-prism flowing light mirror's thousands of transformations were instantly restrained. Although it couldn't suppress the 1,000-prism flowing light mirror, it forced the 1,000-prism flowing light mirror to fully defend itself, and could only let Yuxin Tao out. The moment Yuxin Tao appeared, the purple flag that emitted a rainbow light in the sky instantly rolled, and a boundless suction force was about to sweep Yuxin Tao away. Xianlin Taoist's expression became a little more solemn, and his right eye also shone brightly. Within the light, a stone staircase flew out, and it was another powerful magic treasure. It was like a path to the heavens, and when Yu Xintao landed on it, it was as if he wanted to ascend to the heavens in a single step. A huge force that seemed to be able to overturn the world carried Yu Xintao away from the purple flag suction force. Lin Feng said indifferently, "It's a good magic treasure, but how many more do you have?" As he spoke, a red and yellow light flashed between Lin Feng's eyebrows, and the Dragon God Sky armor turned into a ray of light. It didn't need anyone to wear it, and it directly flew across the sky like a cannonball, slamming heavily into the stone staircase. The stone staircase shook violently, and Yu Xintao immediately fell from it. Xianlin Taoist wanted to save him, but Lin Feng had already blocked his path. Just like that, the purple flag that emitted a rainbow light immediately rolled, and Yu Xintao was sucked into the flag. As the purple light flashed, Yu Xintao let out a miserable cry. The Yuan Shun incarnation that appeared in the form of a black ice soul tried to resist, but it was to no avail. Hundreds of thousands, even millions of purple runes and incantations were shot into the black ice soul, forming one picture after another, deeply engraved on Yu Xintao's Yuan Shun. Old Sword Immortal, Dao Master Thundercloud, Shizong Yue, and the others were all shocked. "This is..." Xianlin Taoist stared at Lin Feng and the purple flag. "You imprisoned his Yuan Shun?" Lin Feng grabbed the purple flag and waved it slightly. Light flashed on the flag, and Yu Xintao's figure appeared. He had a painful expression, but he was unable to resist. "You want to preserve the strength of the human cultivation world, right?" Lin Feng said indifferently. "Yes, I also took into account that it was not easy for him to cultivate the primordial spirit, so I let him live. But the death penalty can be avoided, but the punishment cannot be forgiven. He has repeatedly invaded my Xianmen Sky sect. He must receive the punishment he deserves. I won't make things difficult for him, nor will I torture him, nor will I refine his Yuan Shun. Although he is on my Xintian God sealing flag, he can still cultivate by breathing in the spirit qi of heaven and earth. If a war really breaks out between the Divine Land and Tianwan continent, I will send him to the front line to redeem himself. His fate in the future will depend on his own luck." Lin Feng looked straight at Xianlin Taoist and said calmly, "If he is under my supervision, I can spare his life." The female cultivator of Taishu Temple next to Xianlin Taoist said bitterly, "If you imprison his Yuan Shun, even if you can keep him alive and continue to cultivate, he has no freedom at all. His life is in your hands. So what's the difference between that and death?" "It's worse than death, she didn't continue. Only the demon sect had such means, but Lin Feng had just used the matter of paying Jia to slap her in the face. It was inevitable that she would be a little short of breath if she mentioned such a thing again. Lin Feng's expression was still as calm as before. "I've already refined this treasure for a long time. This Yu Xintao is the first person to get on the flag. My motto has always been, if people don't offend me, I won't offend them. For him to end up like this, he is only himself to blame. It's fine if I don't imprison his Yuan Shun. I can give him a quick death at any time." Although Lin Feng had killed Xan Longxing's Dharmakaya and captured the Shaoyang and Tying swords of the Tianjia Peak sword trials, he didn't kill anyone and let the people of Mount Shu sword sect go back. But today, he showed his ruthless means again. Everyone couldn't help but recall that just a year ago, in the Battle of Kunlun Mountain, he killed Dao Master Tianfeng and suppressed the Golden Crow Sage without mercy. Xianlin Taoist stared at Lin Feng. The human emotions in his eyes gradually faded and finally returned to calmness. It was as if all things in creation had returned to nirvana. His mana became more and more majestic. At this moment, a white cloud suddenly fell from the sky and covered him and the female Dao Master next to him. A voice came from the cloud. "That's it for today." Xianlin Taoist's eyes changed, and a strong and complex emotion emerged again. He looked at Lin Feng expressionlessly and let the cloud take him away. The cloud rolled and unrolled. Xianlin Taoist and Lin Feng had returned to White Cloud Mountain. "Uncle." Xianlin Taoist bowed to the cloud. A grand will came from the cloud. It was like the sky and earth. Everywhere, everywhere, so vast that it couldn't be explored. Xianlin, you're anxious. Xianlin Taoist, a member of the Taishu Temple Supreme Elders Association and an expert in the third tier of the primordial soul realm, bowed to accept the lesson. Uncle is right. The conservatives are also anxious. The Will said silently. They want to use Xianmin Tianzong to stop us from advancing, and then let them clean up the situation. But they never thought that going too far is as bad as not doing enough. After a pause, the voice sounded again. Xianlin, you tell Tianyi the truth about Master Yu's matter. Xianlin Dao Venerable was defeated in front of Lin Feng and was unable to protect Yu Xintao. It was already a great loss of face. If he went to inform Shi Tianyi about the matter at this time, his face could be said to be completely lost. But he didn't hesitate and nodded. I will take responsibility. After Shi Tianyi received the news, his expression didn't change at all. He just closed his eyes silently. After a long time, he opened his eyes. His eyes flashed, and he said solemnly, Uncle, please help me prepare. Martial Uncle, please help me prepare. I want to enter the battlefield of the void. The void battlefield was a place of death for most people, but there were always exceptions. Taishu Temple had a way to enter the void battlefield freely, but the opportunity was extremely precious and limited. It was so rare that every disciple of Taishu Temple only had one chance in their lifetime. In the void battlefield, there are treasures that can make me stronger. Chapter 531. Yu Xintao, whose Yuan Shun was imprisoned by Lin Feng on the Xintian God-sealing flag, watched as Xianlin Taoist and Xiao Yunyan were swept away by the white cloud. A look of despair appeared on Yu Xintao's face. His last hope was also shattered. Prince Anliang, Shi Zongyue, Beirong Yuxian, and the others were also shocked by this scene. In the end, Taishu Temple actually took a step back. Elder Sword Immortal and Dao Master Thundercloud looked at each other and thought to themselves, we'll see the results in a month. They watched as Lin Feng put away the Xintian God-sealing flag, the Eternal Night Devil Steel, and the Dragon God Heavenly Armor. They smiled bitterly. It's said that Xianmin Tianzong's foundation is weak, but this Xianmin sect master has so many Dharma treasures. Lin Feng put away the Dharma treasures and looked at Elder Sword Immortal and Shi Zongyue with a smile. I've made a few new Dharma treasures. Please don't laugh at me. Elder Sword Immortal and the others shook their heads. With their eyesight, they could naturally see that Lin Feng's Dharma treasures were only at the spirit-nurturing level. Apart from the Eternal Night Devil Steel, which was not made by him, the Xintian God-sealing flag and the Dragon God Heavenly Armor were only at the spirit-nurturing level. But they were so domineering that no one dared to underestimate them. Lin Feng looked at Dao Master Thundercloud and Elder Sword Immortal and said, in a month, I sincerely invite the two of you to attend the ceremony. I hope you can spare some time to come. Both of them smiled and nodded. Although it's a battle between juniors, it's still a rare event. We will naturally come. Lin Feng then greeted Shi Zongyue and Prince Yuxian. Then he smiled and took Xiao Yin and Shi Tianhao with him, disappearing into the void. Everyone looked in the direction where Lin Feng and his disciple disappeared. They were silent for a long time and had many thoughts in their minds. Looking at the ruins of the Yu family's ancestral land and the place where Xianlin Taoist and the others disappeared, they felt that today's battle had a profound impact. There was no need to mention anything else, but one thing was already clear. From then on, Lin Feng and Xianmin Tianzong became existences that could not be ignored in the Divine Land. Anyone who planned anything would have to consider Lin Feng's reaction and thoughts. Within the imperial palace of the Darqin dynasty's capital, West Tomb City, a middle-aged man who wore a crown and a dragon robe, and he emanated the aura of an emperor, sat upright on the throne. He was the emperor of Qin, Stonefeather. Standing before Stonefeather was a man that seemed like a scholar. He had a refined appearance and a deep gaze that seemed like an ocean that contained everything, yet was bottomless and unfathomable. It was precisely the Grand Qin Empire's Prime Minister, Wu Qinru. Wu Qingru sighed softly. Does your majesty think that little Shirtu will win against big Shirtu? Qin Emperor Stonefeather said indifferently. We are indeed more optimistic about Shi Tianhao. Wu Qingru said, whether it is Shi Tianyi or Shi Tianhao, it is impossible for them to inherit the great Qin dynasty. There had once been a rumor that the crown prince of the Qin dynasty, Shi Chongyun, had talent but no virtue. He was not qualified to inherit the throne, and his virtue was not enough to become emperor. It just so happened that Qin Emperor Stonefeather did not have many children. Among the princes, Shi Chongyun was the only talented one. Therefore, there had been a period of time when the news of the innate genius, the dual-pupiled person Shi Tianyi, being adopted by the Shi clan to the royal family and becoming the future successor of the Qin emperor spread like wildfire. In reality, this was not completely a rumor. There had been a period of time when Qin Emperor Stonefeather really did have such thoughts. He was not worried that Shi Tianyi, who was born in the Shi clan, would cause the clan's power to expand further after he succeeded the throne. If Shi Tianyi could ascend to the throne, it would definitely not be the Shi clan that would help him. With his talent and potential, it was even more impossible for him to be controlled by the Shi clan in the future. If Shi Tianyi ascended to the throne, he would naturally look at things from the perspective of the Qin emperor. At that time, he would probably be even more powerful than Stonefeather, and his methods would be even crueler. However, the matter of adoption was no small matter. The Qin Emperor Stonefeather could not make up his mind for the time being. At the same time, the matter of Shi Tianyi's adoption was extremely controversial. Stonefeather did not choose to act arbitrarily. What caused Stonefeather to completely give up on this idea was that Shi Tianyi had entered the Taishu Temple and become a core disciple of the Taishu Temple. A disciple of the Taishu Temple, and a core disciple of the core, a true disciple of the true disciples. It was impossible for the Qin dynasty to make such a person emperor, not even the position of heir apparent. Slowly, Stonefeather looked at Wu Qingru and said, Shi Tianyi can't, Shi Tianhao can't either. Wu Qingru nodded. Now it depends on what the Shi clan does. Stonefeather's face was hidden behind the crown. We have already given them the chance. Wu Qingru smiled slightly. Stonefeather looked towards him. The current situation should be what you are most happy to see, right? Frankly speaking, it's not. The expression on Wu Qingru's face was a little difficult to understand. It has already exceeded my expectations. His eyes grew deeper. The variables that Xianmin Tianzong has brought are really not small. Mount Tongtian, where the Nine Heaven Sword Alliance's second-ranked sect was located. In the Sword Pavilion at the top of the mountain, Old Sword Immortal had already returned to the mountain and was sitting cross-legged. Opposite him were several groups of sword chi that had condensed into human figures. The leading one was a middle-aged man dressed in a green robe, and his sword intent soared into the sky. He was the sect master of the Heavenly Sword Sect, the current Sword Immortal Tongtian. Martial Granduncle, you have worked hard. Old Sword Immortal was the first to bow to Sword Immortal Tongtian. Sect Master is too polite. I have gained a lot from this trip. After Sword Immortal Tongtian returned the greeting, he sat down first, and the other people behind him also bowed to Old Sword Immortal. After Old Sword Immortal sat down, he said, Now it seems that the rise of Xianmin Tianzong is unstoppable. Sword Immortal Tongtian said, In a month's time, in the battle between the Shi brothers and the ancient Sky Dragon domain, if the dual-pupiled individual wins, Xianmin Tianzong's momentum will be thwarted. If the dual-pupiled individual loses, then it will depend on what Xianlin Taoist and the others will do. Once the situation becomes chaotic, there will be many variables. The enemies of Xianmin Tianzong in the past may flock to him. Old Sword Immortal slowly nodded his head. The experts of the radical faction of the Void Temple will not be willing to accept their own defeat. If the dual-pupiled person wins, then that's fine. But if the dual-pupiled person loses, then things will definitely not be good. If the dual-pupiled individual wins, things will not be good either. Sword Immortal Tongtian's tone was somewhat ethereal. Previously, no one believed that the Master of the Celestial Gate would become enemies with the Taishu Temple for a disciple. But after today's matter, he has already shown his determination. In his words, there is no room for negotiation. Sword Immortal Tong Tian continued. Yes, it is said that the master of the Celestial Gate is protective, but now it seems that it is far more than the rumors. Sword Immortal Tong Tian's gaze swept across the several people in the Sword Pavilion, all of whom were primordial spirit experts of the Heavenly Sword Sect. Today, we have already made our stance clear, and also completed the task entrusted to us by others. Next, we just need to wait and see. Sword Immortal Tong Tian and the others nodded in agreement. Among the mountains of Western Shu, there were 6 sword-like mountains. Sword Qi surged between the mountains, and another mountain was suspended in the air. This was where the mountain gate of the Mount Shu Sword Sect was located. At this moment, in the main hall of one of the 6 mountains, a few people were sitting opposite each other. Their expressions were all gloomy. The Taishu Temple is an internal strife, and Xianmen Tianzong is also involved. This is the best opportunity for us to wash away our shame. One of them was Sword Immortal Xiaoshang, whose expression was incomparably serious. The Xiaoyang and Taiyin swords must be taken back. Sword Immortal Xiaoze and Sword Immortal Li's expressions were gloomy. Sword Immortal Guanchong, who was beside them, was as cold as a stone statue. His void returned Dharma body had been destroyed, and his cultivation had fallen back to the first tier of the primordial spirit realm. He had suffered the greatest losses in the Heaven Track Peak Sword Trials. A middle-aged man sat on the main seat. He had a square face, and his aura was majestic and steady. He was Sword Immortal Xiaoyang, who had presided over Mount Shu and had not gone to Heaven Track Peak. The sect master and the few grand elders are still in seclusion. If they don't come out, do you want to be humiliated again? Sword Immortal Xiaoyang said lightly. Sword Immortal Xiaoshang frowned slightly. Xiaoyang, your lineage's legacy treasure has been lost. A person stood behind Sword Immortal Xiaoyang. It was Sword Immortal Towering Sky, who had brought the Xiaoyang sword to Heaven Track Peak. When he heard that, he immediately looked ashamed. On the other side, Sword Immortal Moonshine of the Taiyin lineage also looked ashamed. Sword Immortal Xiaoyang said silently, if the sect master and the others don't come out, you will only pay with the other 4 swords if you look for the sect master. Sword Immortal Xiaoshang, Sword Immortal Junior, Sword Immortal Li, and Sword Immortal Guanchong all paled. That's right. The Heaven Track Peak Sword Trials lost to the sect master because we were unable to set up the complete 6-meridian Immortal Heaven Sword Formation. But now, how can we also set up a complete sword formation? Sword Immortal Xiaoshang said unhurriedly, I don't have the Xiaoyang sword. Although Martial Uncle Guanchong has the Chong sword, his Void Return Dharma body has been destroyed. Moonshine of the Taiyin lineage has not cultivated a Void Return Dharma body, and she has lost the Taiyin sword. If we look for the sect master now, we will only be following the old path of the Heaven Track Peak Sword Trials. Sword Immortal Xiaoshang let out a long sigh. After a long while, he said, you are right. The situation may be chaotic, but how can placing your hopes on others compare to your own strength? It was I who fell into a demonic trap, Sword Immortal Xiaoshang said frankly. Sword Immortal Xiaoshang said calmly, my Shu mountain has been too smooth these years, so much so that even I am a little lost. Silently, Sword Immortal Xiaoshang said, everything will wait for Sect Master and the others to come out of seclusion. After the Battle of Heaven Track Peak, Sect Master has gained more compared to the time in the Cloudy Forest realm. This time, when he goes into seclusion with the Grand Elders, he might be able to have a major breakthrough. Slowly, he said, moreover, it might not be impossible for us to make it in a month's time. Hearing this, the eyes of the others all lit up. On Jade Capital Mountain, Lin Feng stood calmly at the peak of the mystic Heaven Treasure Tree. Xiao Yin and the others stood in front of him. Lin Feng was currently looking at Xiao Yin with an amused expression. You were very happy just now. Now you're suffering, right? Xiao Yin laughed bitterly. The difficulty and danger of fusing 3 kinds of true fire really cannot be compared to 2 kinds of true fire. I myself felt that I almost failed. It was just that I refused to give up. In any case, I finally completed it. But the consumption was really great. Even with the protection of Master's magic treasure, I still felt like I was almost drained dry. This feels even more tiring than when I fused true fire for the first time on Cloud Traversing Peak. Chapter 532. After the battle, the first disciple of the Xianmin Tianzong sect master, Xiao Yin, became renowned throughout the Divine Continent. He possessed 4 great true fires and had a cultivation of the late Gold Core stage. He had killed 3 late Yuanying stage ancestors of the Yu clan and other Yuanying stage cultivators. With the strength of a single person, he had flattened the Yu clan's mansion in West Hill City. After Lin Feng's avatar kept the patriarch of the Yu family busy and the heaven-crushing sword Qi breached the protective formation of the ancestral grounds, Xiao Yin flattened the Yu family's manor in the ancestral grounds. This battle caused Xiao Yan's name to rise and spread throughout the world, and the Yu family became the stepping stone for his rise. The Yu family, one of the 4 great clans of the Great Qin Empire, had completely declined. Even the soul of their patriarch, Yu Xintao, had been imprisoned by Lin Feng using the arcane treasure, the heavenly profound God-sealing banner. Only a few members of the great clan remained, living in constant fear. This battle also allowed the world to witness the terror of the successor of Xianmin Tianzong, which made them feel even more reverence towards the legendary master of the Taoist sect of wonders, Lin Feng. However, it was also during this battle that discord arose between Xianmin Tianzong and the number 1 sacred ground of the Divine Land, the Taishu Temple, because of the grievances between the disciples of both sides. The 2 sides set up a battle agreement. It was called a spar, but everyone knew that the battle between the Shi brothers would probably be a battle to the death. The battle would take place in a month's time. By then, the 2 sides would fight to the death on a rather legendary stage like the Dragon Arena of the ancient Heavenly Dragon domain. The battle agreement would be announced to the world, attracting everyone's attention. At this moment, Xiao Yin was on Yujing Mountain. He looked at Lin Feng with an awkward smile. 3 true fires really aren't something you can play around with so easily. Lin Feng smiled. I'm just urging you to cultivate properly. When you clashed with someone earlier, the disciples on the mountain saw the entire battle. Xiao Yin grinned. Fortunately, I succeeded. Otherwise, I would have embarrassed myself on the entire Yujing Mountain. He glanced at Shi Tianhao. You're even more so. A smile appeared on Shi Tianhao's face. Don't worry, Master. I will definitely win the battle in a month. Lin Feng nodded. Suddenly, his heart stirred, and he turned to look at the void on the other side. A crack appeared in the void, and a handsome young man, wearing a violet robe with golden edges, walked out. It was Miao Shihao. However, when everyone saw Miao Shihao, they were slightly taken aback and felt that he was very different from before. He was still the same person. His facial features were still extraordinarily handsome, and his aura of transcendence energy was the same as the ethereal illusion art that he had cultivated. However, his entire temperament was completely different. Brother Shihao, who had always been enchanting, charming, and peerless in his generation, now had a dignified expression with a hint of worry. He didn't have the slightest trace of makeup or feminine femininity. Instead, he looked like a talented scholar. He had a noble temperament and an awe-inspiring demeanor. Miao Shihao solemnly bowed to Lin Feng and said with a serious expression, "Congratulations, sect leader, for defeating the arrogance of those from Taishu Temple." Lin Feng looked at him calmly and nodded in return. "Shihao, you're too kind." Shi Tianhao asked curiously, "Mr. Miao, what's wrong with you? Why do I feel that you're completely different from before?" "There's nothing different. I'm still me." Miao Shihao smiled slightly. "When the fake is real, the real is fake. When the real is fake, the fake is real. Flowers in the mirror, the moon reflected in the water, dreams, illusions, bubbles, and shadows. Everything may not be real, and illusions may not be fake." His temperament gradually changed, and he became feminine again. He turned back into the sissy that everyone was familiar with. His gloomy gaze also changed back to the peach blossom eyes of the past. He looked at Lin Feng, and his eyes seemed to be dripping water. He covered his mouth and smiled tenderly. Anyway, thank you, sect leader, for helping me vent my anger. This time, Lin Feng did not roll his eyes. Instead, he looked at Miao Shihao very seriously. Congratulations, Shihao, your ethereal illusion technique cultivation has improved to the next level. Miao Shihao smiled tenderly and said, That's also thanks to you, sect leader. He looked up at the sky and said with a smile, I only feel that the shackles in my heart have been slightly removed. My whole body suddenly feels much more relaxed. Lin Feng directly threw him into the mysterious Heaven-Time cave. Since that's the case, then go in and cultivate obediently. Strive to cultivate the heaven and earth manifestation as soon as possible. Miao Shihao was no longer present. Xiaoyan shivered all over and said with lingering fear, Every time I see Mr. Miao, I feel uncomfortable all over. Lin Feng said with a smile, All right, don't talk nonsense. Go back and nourish your magic power. The fusion of 3 types of true fire is still a very big burden for you now. Xiaoyan nodded and looked at Shi Tianhao. If little junior brother has been in seclusion in the mysterious Heaven-Time cave for a month, it will be equivalent to more than 8 years. Shi Tianhao said with a smile, It's useless to have so much time. After the previous seclusion, my magic power and magic power have now reached the peak of the golden elixir period. What I'm missing from forming my nascent soul is not magic power, but the tempering of my mind. This is not something that can be achieved by meditating. Although I have to defeat my little brother in the Yuanying stage in the golden elixir period, if I also form my nascent soul, I'll be very happy to directly crush him. Shi Tianhao revealed a somewhat sly smile. However, it is indeed not possible to form my nascent soul just by meditating. I have a feeling that the best time for me to form my nascent soul is after the battle with my little brother. At this point, Shi Tianhao's expression became a little more solemn. I am now trying my best to figure out the Dermic Tao that Master taught me and temper my magic power to prepare for the battle in a month's time. Xiaoyan nodded. After bidding farewell to Lin Feng and Shi Tianhao, he returned to his Burning Heaven Cliff. In Burning Heaven Cliff, apart from Lu Xiaofeng and little fatty Yin Wuwei, Su Yinsheng, Ying Lizha, and Li Xingfei were also gathered here because Zhu Yi had left the mountain. Usually, when they had problems with Dermic Tao, they would ask their great martial uncle Xiao Yan for advice. At this moment, they were gathered together. Even the usually calm Su Yunxing's face was a little red, appearing to be very excited. Little fatty Yin Wuwei even danced with joy, spittle flying as he spoke. How is it? What did I say? Isn't my master powerful? He doesn't usually fight with others. That's because he doesn't want to fight. If my master fights, it will be earth-shattering. Do you believe me now? My master is practically a fire god, descending into the world. Other than the 5 who had entered the inner chamber, there were more than 10 youths present. They were all second-generation disciples who had always been on good terms with them. At this moment, all of their faces were red, and they were all extremely excited. Even if little fatty's spittle was about to splash on their faces, no one cared. Instead, they were all excited. Elder Xiao is so strong. A late-stage golden elixir fighting a late-stage Yuanian cultivator. And it's not just 1 or 2. Lu Xiaofeng pulled little fatty Yin Wuwei back, smiling as he asked him to calm down. However, he also felt very carefree. Master's 2 fires were indeed very satisfying. The first fire burned the Yu clan's residence in West Hill City. The second fire was even fiercer, burning several Yu clan's Yuanian ancestors to death. Among them, there were even 2 late-stage Yuanian cultivators. Back then, when we wanted to be apprenticed to the Sand Continent City, the Yu clan and the Wind God sect obstructed us and even wanted to kidnap us. During the Battle of Kunlun Mountain, they came to pick a fight again. Today, we finally made them pay the price. Lu Xiaofeng took a deep breath. Slowly, he said, "Heaven's justice is clear, and retribution is not pleasant. This is called justice in the world." Rosa, who had always been unsociable, also felt very happy at this moment. However, he was unhappy with little fatty Yin Wuwei's way of raising Xiaoyan's status and belittling others. His relationship with Zhu Yi wasn't that deep, but Rosa was always unhappy that his own master was being suppressed by someone else. However, Xiaoyan's previous battle achievements were real, and Rosa was also very impressed. He snorted. "In my opinion, Grandmaster is the truly powerful one. Even without his presence, he could suppress the Yu clan's patriarch. Once he was present, even Taishu Temple had to give way. Grandmaster's words, 'Those who offend my Xianmen Tianzong, no matter how far away, will be punished,' are the most satisfying." Rosa's eyes flickered continuously. He grinned, revealing a mouthful of white wolf teeth. "Now, I really feel that I didn't choose the wrong sect." As soon as he said this, the crowd's atmosphere became even more uplifted. The crowd no longer cared that the person who spoke was Rosa, who had always been at odds with them. They only felt that his words had truly touched everyone's hearts. After Lin Feng defeated the Mount Shu sword sect at the Tianhe Peak sword meet, and this time, he forcefully defeated Taishu Temple's third-tier primordial spirit transformation realm grand elder Xianlin Taoist. This caused the younger generation of Xianmen Tianzong disciples to feel even more proud of their sect. Not to mention the Mount Shu sword sect. Even if it was the #1 sacred ground in the world, Taishu Temple, we, Xianmen Tianzong, would not fear it at all. "You have to pay us back for what you owe us. If you don't, then we'll beat you until you pay." Slowly, the usually calm and composed Su Yunsheng also nodded. "It's precisely because of this that we should work even harder in our cultivation. We have to inherit the might of our elders. We can't bring shame to our sect." Li Xingfei said, "Grandmaster's might shakes the entire divine continent. Our masters have also shaken the world. The disciples of Xianmen Tianzong are invincible when it comes to fights of the same realm." The girl in purple repeated these words that had already spread throughout the divine land. "We have to prove to the world that no matter which generation of disciples we are from, these words are always true." Although she was a girl, the aura of her words was not inferior to that of a man. This made the others around her cheer. "That's right, that's how it should be." A ball of flame suddenly lit up in the middle of the crowd. From the flame, a tall and straight figure slowly walked out. It was Xiaoyan. He looked at the crowd and laughed heartily. "Little fellows, don't be all talk and no action. Since you all have such determination, don't blame me for training you twice as hard in the future." Everyone agreed loudly. "We will work even harder." Naturally, Lin Feng was happy to see the rising motivation of the younger disciples and the improvement of the sect's cohesiveness. Wasn't this the reason why he had a live broadcast? Of course, the premise of a live broadcast was that the sect had to win, and win in a spectacular manner. Previously, when the second-generation disciples went through the disciple recruitment test for the first time, Lin Feng realized that he had neglected some problems. The second-generation disciples were ill-informed and did not know much about their sect's achievements. For example, the Baroncy Assembly had already ended, but the second-generation disciples still did not know the strength of Zhu Yi, Shi Tianhao, and Yang Qing. Therefore, since then, Lin Feng was enlightened and began his live broadcast career. So far, it seemed that the results were quite good. As Lin Feng was thinking about the live broadcast, he suddenly had a thought and communicated with his god of war clone. At this moment, the god of war clone was in the void battlefield, passing through the turbulent void turbulence. A ruined building was floating in the space. On this building, Lin Feng keenly sensed the aura of Wang Lin's arcane energy. Chapter 533. Lin Feng's avatar of Ares landed in the ruins of the building. He furrowed his brows and carefully sensed the waves of spiritual energy in the area. In the void battleground, there were turbulence and space storms everywhere. All the spiritual energy was in a mess. Lin Feng had to observe carefully. Just now, he could vaguely sense Wang Lin's mana. This feeling is not just the mana. Lin Feng's eyes flashed with a tinge of worry. Besides mana, there's also the energy of his physical body. Wang Lin was a pure spell cultivator. His spells were sharp, but his physical body was weaker. Due to the influence of the destructive state of the River of Styx, his physical body could not be compared to his peers. He was also weaker than the cultivators of the other sections. Therefore, the remnants of his energy after a battle would not be like the energy of other martial arts cultivators. There was only one possibility for Wang Lin's energy to remain here. He was injured. His physical body was injured, and the injury was not light. Wang Lin was very clear about his own weaknesses. Therefore, he always took care to protect his physical body. Now that he was injured, it was enough to show how dangerous the battle was. Lin Feng had left his natal lamp. There was a period of time when the lamp was extremely weak, as if it could be extinguished at any time. After a long period of time, the lamp became strong again. This meant that he had overcome a life-threatening situation. Xiao Yin, Zhu Yi, Wang Lin, and Shi Tianhao were on par with each other in the same stage. Because of the difference in their battle styles and the power of their abhijna, there might be some fluctuations in their actual battle, but overall, they were on the same level. Xiao Yin, Shi Tianhao, and the rest could confirm that when facing most other cultivators, when they were in the initial stage of the golden elixir, with the help of the Yuanying magic items, they could fight against the grandmasters in the initial stage of the golden elixir. A mid-Aura's core stage cultivator could barely defeat a nascent soul stage cultivator in a mid-Aura's core stage. If the other party did not run away and both parties fought to the death, Xiao Yin and the rest could kill the other party at the cost of sustaining serious injuries. However, when they reached the advanced stage of the golden elixir, they could easily defeat most of the advanced stage Yuanying cultivators. They could completely ignore the power of the cosmic form. But here came a problem. After Wang Lin fell into the void battleground, Lin Feng had used his own consciousness to check his residence. Through the remnants of mana and aura, he could determine that Wang Lin had already undergone cultivation and had the hope of overcoming the tribulation of the Yin fire and advancing to the middle stage of the golden elixir. The flow of time in the void battleground was chaotic and complicated. The flow of time was different in different spatial regions. It was very likely that Wang Lin had stayed in a space where the flow of time was accelerated, which provided him with more time to cultivate. Lin Feng looked at the mana and aura in the ruins again. Wang Lin's cultivation had indeed improved by another level. He had successfully advanced to the middle stage of the golden elixir and was in the heavenly master realm. However, his opponent was a cultivator in the advanced stage of the Yuanying cultivator who had formed the cosmic form. Lin Feng felt the changes in the mana and made a judgment in his heart. It's the bastard who caused Wang Lin to fall into the void battleground. Although Lin Feng knew that Wang Lin had already escaped from danger by observing the natal light, the void battleground was a perilous place for Yuanying cultivators. Other than the original enemy, Wang Lin could encounter other dangers or other powerful cultivators who entered the void battleground. There seems to be something hidden in these ruins. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He stepped lightly, and the ground cracked open. The entire ruins were almost completely destroyed. Under the stimulation of Lin Feng's power, the originally silent ruins suddenly flashed with a red light. This red light was extremely ferocious. It was filled with the concept of disaster, misfortune, pain, evil, and many other powers. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows slightly. He did not move. He stretched out his hands and performed the heavens catch. The power of the spatial boundary instantly pinched the red light and prevented it from causing any more trouble. In the red light, a huge human figure vaguely appeared. An endless and terrifying aura of disaster was emitted from his body. It was a tall and muscular man. His entire body was extremely perfect. There was not a single flaw. His facial features were also extremely perfect. However, his expression was calm, and there was not a single trace of emotion. His eyes were wide open, just like the most primitive chaos at the beginning of the universe. This statue was surrounded by a destructive and tyrannical aura of a natural disaster, making everyone who saw it feel incomparably shocked and terrified. Lin Feng's face revealed a shocked expression. This is the remnant aura of a cultivator who has attained the immortal soul stage. Furthermore, this is the condensation of the mantras of a demonic cultivator. Oh, this is a rather exquisite demonic mantras. Such mantras are rarely seen in the Divine Land today. Lin Feng sized up the huge human figure in the red light with interest. He could feel the violent power concept of the demonic mantras. After attaining the immortal soul stage, the powers of Lin Feng's original body had already surpassed that of the Avatar of Ares. Even so, the Avatar of Ares was not afraid of an ordinary immortal soul second-level cultivator. Furthermore, this was just a manifestation of his remaining powers. After suppressing the human figure, Lin Feng tried to figure out the profundities of the mantras. He compared it to the information in the system and gradually understood how rare. This is the mantras of the ancient satanic sect. 10,000 years ago, the human world of cultivation in the Divine Land was mixed with the satanic sect. There were many satanic sects that shocked the entire era. Among them, the most powerful satanic sect was the ancient satanic sect. They ruled over the satanic sect and dominated the entire grand celestial world. At its peak, even the Mount Shu Sword sect and the Great Thunderclap Temple had to treat it seriously. It was one of the few super sects in the history of the human world of cultivation that dared to challenge the Taishu Temple. The human figure that Lin Feng was suppressing now was an elder of the ancient satanic sect. He cultivated the Avicii mantra. After attaining the immortal soul stage, he cultivated his own virtual entity. However, the Void Battleground was so ferocious that even an immortal soul stage cultivator could not guarantee his safety. This elder of the satanic sect also met with a calamity. No one knew whether he was dead or alive, but his virtual entity was destroyed. He fell from the immortal soul second level back to the immortal soul first level. His broken virtual entity did not dissipate completely under the influence of the turbulence of the Void Battleground. Instead, it condensed here. If no one took care of it, this human figure would continue to grow. Perhaps one day, it would develop spiritual awareness and become an avatar of the elder of the satanic sect. Lin Feng suppressed this human figure and thought. Although the Avicii mantra is not the greatest secret manual of the ancient satanic sect, it is not inferior to the Tathagata Dharma mantra of the 5 directions of the Great Thunderclap Temple. There are countless profundities within it. When one cultivates the Avicii mantra and below the immortal soul stage, one can attain the Avicii undying body. Although it is not truly undying, it is a new physical body cultivated using the Avicii satanic chi. It can be gathered and dispersed at will. There is no need to fear damage. In ancient times, the disciples of the ancient satanic sect who cultivated the Avicii undying body were especially ferocious in battle. Cultivators below the immortal soul stage were very powerful because of this abhijna. Lin Feng looked in a void space. I wonder how Wang Lin is doing now? For someone like him, discovering the mantras here should be as easy as eating and drinking. The only thing he was worried about was that Wang Lin's path to becoming the son of heaven did not change. After the human figure was subdued, the ruins no longer had any value. Lin Feng controlled the avatar of Ares to fly up and enter the turbulence of void space again. Besides Wang Lin, Tianhao's parents and family are more worrying. At the western border of the Great Zhou Empire, where the Great Qin Empire and the Great Zhou Empire intersected, there was a huge army. The person leading this army was the most powerful person in the Great Zhou Empire's military, the Marquis of Jinghuan. In front of the commander-in-chief's tent, there was a huge black flag that fluttered in the wind. When the soldiers in the camp saw this flag, their eyes shone with fanaticism. In the tent, the Marquis of Jinghuan stood with his hands behind his back. He was looking at a map in the corner. There were a few people standing behind him. The two people in front were a burly man clad in armor and a middle-aged man in a white robe. Both of them had a strong aura, and their mana was boundless. They were the two Yuaning advanced-stage cultivators under the Marquis of Jinghuan's command. The middle-aged man in white robe said in a deep voice, "Marquis, these are troubled times. If you enter the void battleground now, and something happens in the greater world, I'm afraid you won't be able to make it back in time." The Marquis of Jinghuan shook his head and said, "No worries. It's much easier for me to enter the void battleground than others. Although I can't do as I please, it's not that difficult. There are many treasures waiting for me in the void battleground. It's because of these troubled times that I have to be prepared." He smiled and said, "Furthermore, there's a little beauty that I've always admired who wants to enter the void battleground. It's rare for her to leave the protection of her family. This is a rare opportunity, and I have to grab it." The man in armor said, "Commander, I'll go with you." The Marquis of Jinghuan waved his hand and said, "You stay behind and watch over the camp for me. I'll leave the Godslayer puppet to you. If anything happens, you can do whatever you want." He turned his head to look at the middle-aged man in white robe and said, "This time, please follow me." The man in armor and the middle-aged man in white robe nodded and said, "Yes, Marquis." In a desolate and ancient middle world, there was a majestic city at the end of the plains. There was a row of palaces in the middle of the city. Although they weren't glittering in gold and jade, they were majestic and dignified. There was a sense of antiquity that was rarely seen nowadays. Naturally, there was a sense of majesty that came from everywhere, just like a royal palace. It was situated in the middle of a desolate plain, which made the royal aura seem a little dilapidated. However, if one observed carefully, one would realize that there was a powerful aura that seemed to be nurturing in the midst of the desolation, as if it was about to return. In one of the palaces, a young girl in a light green robe stood tall and slender. There was a purple belt around her slender waist, which outlined her waist and made her look extremely alluring. Her silky hair cascaded down her shoulders and only stopped when it reached her slender waist. Her slender figure was untainted by a speck of dust, and she was like a green lotus that bloomed in the mortal world. She was otherworldly and possessed a spiritual aura. In front of her, someone was kneeling on one knee. Silently, he said, "After that, the leader of the celestial sect of wonders forced the Xianlin Taoist of the Taishu Temple to retreat. After that, he left. Xiao Yin left with him." A smile appeared on the young girl's face. "Brother Xiao Yin, your name has already shaken the world." The person in front of her looked at the young girl and hesitated for a moment before saying, "Xiao Yan's abilities have already been recognized by everyone. Since that's the case, do you still want to enter the void battleground?" The young girl said softly, "Of course. Brother Xiao Yin has become stronger, so all the more I want to go. If I don't move forward, how can I accompany him forever?" Chapter 534. The green-robed girl walked in the palace and came to a large hall. There was no one in the hall, but a voice rang out, "Zhen, are you ready?" The girl was Xiao Zhen, who had separated from Xiao Yin. Silently, she said, "Yes, father, I am ready to go to the outer space battlefield." There was no void thunder tribulation in a medium-class world. Therefore, those who were born here could only reach the late stage of the golden elixir realm if they cultivated in a medium-class world. If they wanted to reach the nascent soul stage, they had to find a way to go to the boundless world. But for various reasons, the realm passageway between the boundless world and the known medium-class worlds had attracted a lot of attention. If the golden elixir period cultivators who were born in the medium-class worlds wanted to go to the boundless world, there would be many obstacles. This involved a lot of exchanges of interests. Of course, some people would be taken by their Yuaniing elders and try to sneak into the boundless world. But the consequences of doing so were unpredictable. The medium-class world that Xiao Zhan was born in was different from the medium-class worlds like the ancient Yuan Tian realm. If the people here wanted to go to the boundless world, they would attract more attention. If they want to find another way, then there was another way, and that was to go to the outer space battlefield. Although the outer space battlefield was also a foreign dimension, it was different from the medium-class worlds. It was full of void storms and void thunder tribulations. Because of the void thunder tribulations, it was very dangerous for the Golden Elixir period cultivators to go there. If they were not strong enough, they would be instantly turned into ashes if they were struck by the thunder tribulations. Aside from the void thunder tribulations, there were many other dangers in the void battlefield. Not to mention golden core stage cultivators, even original infant stage cultivators had a slim chance of survival. Even primordial soul stage cultivators could not guarantee their safety. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, the cultivators born in the medium-class worlds would not choose to go to the outer space battlefield to undergo the tribulation. If there were exceptions, even the outstanding disciples of the powerful forces would choose to go there. One reason was to undergo the tribulation, and the other was to gain experience. They wanted to try their luck and try to find the treasures in the outer space battlefield. Right now, Xiao Zhan was already at the late stage of Golden Elixir. The young girl in the past had grown into a beautiful woman, and now she was heading to the void battleground. After a moment of silence, the voice in the hall resounded again. Zhan, you have a good eye? Xiao Yin is indeed extraordinary. The corners of Xiao Zhan's mouth revealed a light smile. Her father's recognition of Xiao Yin made her feel even happier than praising her. However, the voice continued. If he relied entirely on his own efforts to achieve what he has today, Royal Father will be happy to accept him. However, behind him is Xianmin Tianzong. His master, the master of the celestial sect of wonders, will become an obstacle between you. The smile on Xiao Zhan's face gradually disappeared. When Xiao Yin was a good-for-nothing, his family would not accept him as their husband. When Xiao Yin rose again, if he did not have Xianmin Tianzong's background, his father, who had always loved him, might have acquiesced and allowed them to be together. However, the existence of Lin Feng and Xianmin Tianzong made all of this awkward. It was not that Xianmin Tianzong was too weak. On the contrary, he was too powerful. However, Xianmin Tianzong might become an obstacle in his family's path, which made his father feel troubled. Silently, Xiao Zhan said, Royal Father, man proposes, God disposes. The world is ever-changing. Who can predict the future? No one will be the eternal protagonist of the world, but my love for Brother Xiao Yin is eternal. The void quieted down. After a long time, a soft sigh was heard. The void battlefield is full of dangers. Be careful. Father will send the ancient brush spirit to escort you inside and do his best to protect you. However, passing the thunder tribulation and forming the nascent soul is all up to you. Xiao Zhan smiled and said, Royal Father, I am your daughter. Laughter also came from the void. That's right. You are my daughter. How can you not even pass the lightning tribulation? Even the void battleground is not a problem for my Zhan. After saying goodbye to her father, Xiao Zhan began her final preparations. Once everything was ready, she would head to the void battleground. The young girl gazed at the empty space, the corners of her mouth revealing a faint smile. Xiao Yin Gij, you are becoming more and more powerful. Zhan also can't slack off, or else you'll scratch my nose and say I'm stupid like when I was little. Right now, Lin Feng didn't know that the void battleground had suddenly become much livelier. He continued to search in the void turbulence with his god of war clone, try to find Wang Lin and Tianhao's parents and grandfather. Meanwhile, his real body was sitting on top of Jade Capital Mountain, staring at the reputation value in the system. His disciple, Xiao Yin, wiped out Yu Clan, and Lin Feng forced Xianlin Taoist and the others from Taishu Temple to go back. All of these made Lin Feng's reputation value and Xianmin Tianzong's overall reputation value rise greatly. Quite a number of regions' reputation value reached the standard. Especially the Great Qin dynasty, almost all regions had more than 80 reputation value, which made Lin Feng very happy. The Great Zhou dynasty is still a bit lacking. I haven't been there much before. As Lin Feng was thinking, he suddenly saw the overall reputation value of the sects in the Great Zhou dynasty increase by a large amount. In many places, the current reputation value might not be very high, but the potential reputation value was already very high. Lin Feng was slightly startled. What's going on? Did I miss a good show? Looks like Xiaoyi must have caused a commotion in the Great Zhou dynasty. Soon, Lin Feng received the news that Zhu Yi was preparing for the exam in Tianjin City. The day of the exam was just around the corner, but he was attacked at this time. In the end, a late-stage Yuanying expert was killed by Zhu Yi on the spot. When the news spread, the entire Great Zhou dynasty was shaken. At this moment, Zhu Yi only had late-stage golden elixir cultivation. This news echoed with Xiao Yan's achievements in the Great Qin dynasty, and it had an effect that was greater than two. It made Xianmin Tianzong's reputation rise even more. Although the opponent had late-stage Yuanying cultivation, he was far from comparable to Marquis Jinghuan, who had an accompanying Dharma treasure. Zhu Yi won easily. He did not even alarm the divine power avatar that Lin Feng had given him. Master, this person is a late-stage Yuanying cultivator under the command of the Great Qin dynasty's crown prince, Liang Yuan. Zhu Yi sent a voice transmission to Lin Feng through dermic powers. Liang Yuan schemed against me, so I counterattacked and killed the expert under him. This person cultivates the Buddhist Dharma and secretly collects the power of faith. His actions are evil. Disciple killing him is equivalent to removing a scourge for the people. Zhu Yi's actions were reasonable, so the Great Zhou dynasty officials could not say anything. Instead, they would even reward him. However, the enmity between him and Liang Yuan deepened. Lin Feng said indifferently, "When guests come, there's fine wine. When wolves come, there's swords and spears. Those who kill will be killed. If they dare to do evil, then so be it." Disciple found those two girls. It was thanks to them that Disciple understood Liang Yuan's plans. Zhu Yi said, "The Crown Prince's junior preceptor, Chun Yu, who supports Liang Yuan, took in that girl called Luo Qinwu. He found out from the ancient origin heaven realm that this girl has some connection to our Xianmin Tianzong, so he wanted to use her to mislead me." When Lin Feng heard Zhu Yi's story, he could not help but shake his head and laugh. It turned out that Chun Yu had purposely leaked the news that Liang Yuan intended to harm Zhu Yi to Luo Qinwu. However, this matter had not been done discreetly, so there were many suspicious points. In this way, when ordinary people receive the news, they would inevitably find it suspicious. They would feel that someone was deliberately framing Liang Yuan and Zhu Yi to create discord and profit from it. Under Liang Yuan and Chun Yu's intentional guidance, the spearhead could be pointed at their true target, such as the fourth prince Liang Qian. Zhu Yi's close relationship with the fourth prince Liang Qian had indeed aroused Liang Yuan's dissatisfaction. However, Xianmin Tianzong was too powerful, and he did not want to directly become enemies. Chun Yu tried to figure out Liang Yuan's thoughts and used this method to first defame himself, using a kind of reverse thinking to lead Zhu Yi down the wrong path. Unfortunately, in the end, he had lifted a rock and smashed it on his own foot. Lin Feng said calmly, "Liang Yuan's way of thinking is far inferior to his father, Liang Pan." Zhu Yi said, "What master says is exactly what disciple thinks. As an emperor, he should be virtuous on the inside and monarch on the outside. It's fine to be an emperor, but to blindly walk an unorthodox path and not temper himself, and even use an evil sect to deceive the masses is truly not the demeanor of an emperor." Lin Feng smiled. "You can deal with the matters of the Great Zhou dynasty as you wish." "Disciple obeys," Zhu Yi answered. "All right, master. Those two girls hope to come to Jade Capital Mountain to seek medical treatment." At this point, he sighed. "Disciple only found out after probing with my transcendence energy. It would be quite a pity if that girl called Luo Qingwu were to lose her precious pearl just like that. Lin Feng's expression did not change, and a smile appeared at the corner of his lips. With regard to Luo Qingwu's initial awkwardness, Lin Feng actually understood what the little girl was thinking. If Lin Feng had not told her to look for him, if she needed anything, if he had not laid down this foreshadowing, even if the little girl knew that her family had planned to send her up the mountain, her reaction would not have been so intense, to the point where even Lin Feng took out his anger on her. Because of the correspondence between the two, the little girl felt that Lin Feng was colluding with her family. As a result, Lin Feng's previous kindness to her changed completely. It was as if he had deliberately deceived and schemed against her. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. The more amiable she had felt before, the colder she felt now. That was why when Lin Feng first heard the news, he felt such a pain in the ass, lamenting that the Luo family were really like pigs as teammates. However, after the little girl's awkwardness for a while, she carefully recalled the time she had spent with Lin Feng. Although it was short, it was warm, and she gradually came around. It was just that she was too thin-skinned and felt that she had wronged Lin Feng. She really should not have blamed him, so she hoped that she could make up for it. Lin Feng was well aware of this little girl's thoughts, but he did not care much. He immediately smiled and said, "The day of your examination is coming soon. Don't delay it. Master will arrange for someone else to bring them back." After interrupting the telepathic conversation with Zhu Yi, Lin Feng summoned the Kuei Ox King and said, "I'll have to trouble you to make a trip to Tianjing City." The Kuei Ox King lowered his huge head. "As the sect master commands." Chapter 535. The Kuei Ox King crossed the void and rushed to Tianjing City, the capital of the Great Zhou dynasty. Although he was not good at flying, he soon arrived at his destination. Arriving at Tianjing City, Kuei Niu King followed Zhu Yi's guidance and came to a manor outside the city. It was actually Zhu Yi who had bought some property for himself here. He bought a quiet and secluded courtyard so that he could practice and prepare for the exam in peace. King Kuei Niu transformed into his human form and changed into the appearance of a burly man. When he entered the courtyard, he saw Zhu Yi standing in the garden with a smile on his face. When he saw King Kuei Niu, he clasped his hands together and said, "Thank you, King Kuei Niu." His cultivation has improved a lot compared to when he left the mountain. The Kuei Ox King looked at Zhu Yi and thought, "The sect master's disciples are really amazing. Even Taishu Temple doesn't have so many outstanding disciples." Although he was in the middle stage Demon King realm, he did not dare to be arrogant in front of Zhu Yi, Shi Tianhao, and the others. In the past, he was at least stronger than these kids and respected them because he respected their status as Lin Feng's disciples. But now, in terms of strength, he was surpassed by Zhu Yi and the others. Although he sighed in his heart, he really respected Zhu Yi and the others at this moment. The Kuei Ox King replied, "You're welcome. The sect master ordered me to come here, so it's not a big deal." Zhu Yi nodded and clapped his hands gently. Two girls ran out, one in red and the other in purple. The one in red was Luo Qingwu, and the one in purple was Jun Zining. The two girls came to Zhu Yi's side and looked curiously at the Kuei Ox King in human form. They could vaguely feel his strength. "This is Senior Kuei Ox King. He will send you back to Yujing Mountain," Zhu Yi introduced. Jun Zining suddenly understood. She had seen the Kuei Ox King's original form before. Now that the Kuei Ox King was in human form, she also felt a little familiar. Hearing Zhu Yi's words, she immediately understood. She and Luo Qingwu hurriedly bowed to King Kuei Niu. "Greetings, Senior." "Greetings, Senior." The one-legged bull king was indifferent, loyal, and not arrogant. He nodded and said hello. Before he came, he had already received instructions from Lin Feng and knew that his mission was to bring these two little fellows back to the mountain. Although the two little fellows were only at the qi refining stage, since Lin Feng had ordered him to make this trip, he would do his best to complete the task and not make any mistakes. Naturally, The Kuei Ox King would not allow these two little fellows to ride on his back. He immediately released a ball of demonic energy and rolled up Luo Qingwu and Jun Zining. Zhu Yi said, "That little girl in red is injured and needs to return to the mountain for treatment. It's not too late, so I won't keep Senior here. I hope Senior won't blame me." The one-legged bull king smiled and said, "You're welcome. I came out this time to do my job, so it's better to report to the sect master as soon as possible. Here, I wish you good luck in your exams and top the golden roll." Zhu Yi cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Thank you for your blessings, Senior." As soon as the one-legged bull king left, a servant in the manor came to report to Zhu Yi, "Young master, someone wants to see you." When Zhu Yi saw the person, he felt unfamiliar. After taking a closer look, he vaguely felt that the other party had used magic tools and pills to change his appearance, and even his magic power and aura had changed. In order to deceive others, I had no choice. Young Master Zhu Yi, please don't blame me. When the other party saw Zhu Yi after the servant left, he immediately removed his disguise. From the appearance of a skinny old man, he quickly turned into a handsome young man. "Oh, it's you?" Zhu Yi saw the other party reveal his true appearance. It was Chu Yang, a young cultivator from beyond Heaven Mountain under the fourth prince, Liang Qian. He sized up Chu Yang. Although his expression did not change, he was actually slightly surprised. This was because Chu Yang before him was actually at early stage foundation establishment. The last time they met on Yujing Mountain was a year ago. At that time, Chu Yang was only at the 10th level of Qi refinement, not even at the great perfection of Qi refinement. In a year, he broke through from the 10th level of Qi refinement to early stage foundation establishment. Such a cultivation speed could not be considered slow. In fact, it could be said to be very fast. If he was originally at the 12th level of Qi refinement, breaking through to foundation establishment in a year would be acceptable. Sometimes a moment of enlightenment could save a lot of time. However, going from the 10th level of Qi refinement all the way to the peak of early stage foundation establishment meant that he had more than one obstacle to overcome. It was quite rare to reach this stage in such a short time. Compared to Zhu Yi and the others, he was a little slower. However, although Zhu Yi and the others had not gone to Yujing Mountain when they were at foundation establishment, they had Lin Feng's 8 trigrams of the Great Way scripture to cultivate. Chu Yang was far from comparable. Zhu Yi could see that Chu Yang did not cultivate in the grotto heaven that sped up time. It had been a year. Now that he was at early stage foundation establishment, he was only a little over 16 years old. No matter which sect he was placed in, he would be outstanding. The Beyond Heaven Mountain that Chu Yang came from was not a powerful force. It could not even compare to places like Xianmen, Tianzong, or Taishu Temple. It could not even compare to the Wind God sect and the Yu clan that Lin Feng had destroyed. The cultivation techniques and resources that Beyond Heaven Mountain could provide Chu Yang could not be considered top-notch. The reason he was able to reach this stage today was mostly due to his own efforts. Zhu Yi observed Chu Yang carefully and did not find anything strange about him. However, his intuition told him that there was a sharp qi on Chu Yang's body. Although it was dormant, there would be a day when it would cut through the heavens and soar to the 9 heavens. This feeling was very mysterious. There was no basis for it. It was purely Zhu Yi's personal feeling. He's also a person with secrets. Zhu Yi smiled inwardly and did not continue to pay attention to him. At the stage that he, Xiao Yin, Shi Tianhao, and the others had reached, they only needed to continue walking down their own paths. Zhu Yi asked indifferently, "So it's fellow Chu. May I know why you've come this time?" In his heart, he knew that although Chu Yang's cultivation was low, his position under the fourth prince Liang Qian was not low. He was a trusted aide. Of course, according to his current cultivation speed and the potential he had displayed, his future cultivation achievements would definitely not be low. Chu Yang stated his purpose of coming here. His main purpose was to extend an invitation to the fourth prince Liang Qian, expressing his goodwill to Zhu Yi. He hoped that he could meet Zhu Yi. Crown Prince Liang Yuan had been tricked by his subordinate, Chun Yu. and made a bad move. While the grudge between him and Zhu Yi deepened, it had instead benefited the fourth prince Liang Qian, who had been framed by him. Liang Qian naturally had to grasp this opportunity and accept his big brother's gift. Liang Qian had left a good impression on Zhu Yi. He also intended to interact more with Liang Qian. However, now was not the time. Right now, he had to focus all his attention on the upcoming examination. Liang Qian, Chu Yang, and the others could also think of this. They did not know the exact time, but they expressed that they would like to meet up with Zhu Yi when he was free. Their attitudes were very humble. Zhu Yi naturally would not refuse. As he conversed with Chu Yang, he felt a little strange. This was because he realized that Chu Yang seemed to be a little absent-minded. Although they had not interacted much, Zhu Yi knew that Chu Yang was a strong-willed and decisive person. It was rare for him to be absent-minded while helping Liang Qian handle official business. This was especially so when Chu Yang's eyes would inadvertently wander around Zhu Yi's courtyard during the conversation. However, it was not because he harbored evil intentions. On closer inspection, it seemed like he was looking for someone. Who was he looking for? Zhu Yi did not expose him, and Chu Yang did not seem to find anything either. In front of Zhu Yi, he did not dare to recklessly scan the courtyard with his spiritual sense. In the end, he could only return in disappointment. He forced himself to bid farewell to Zhu Yi and left the courtyard, feeling even more dispirited. Zhu Yi was baffled. There must be a reason for this. What the hell is this person doing? He did not know that Chu Yang was currently having a headache. My subordinates clearly reported that a red-clothed girl entered Zhu Yi's courtyard. However, I did not find anything this time. If I had known earlier, I would have directly found an excuse to enter Chen Yu's residence. Now I can't force my way into Zhu Yi's courtyard. Chu Yang inadvertently looked to the west, his expression disappointed. Xiao Wu, just where are you? He had sent his subordinates to keep an eye on the surroundings of Zhu Yi's courtyard. However, it was not to keep an eye on Zhu Yi, but to keep an eye on the people who entered or left Zhu Yi's courtyard. However, up until now, he had only seen the girl suspected to be Luo Qingwu enter, and no one come out. However, the Kuei Bull King had directly used his own demonic power to bring her away. This was not something that Chu Yang's subordinates could keep an eye on. At this moment, under the escort of the Kuei Bull King, Luo Qingwu, who Chu Yang had been dreaming of but had once again brushed past, was already on the road to Yujing Mountain. The Kuei Bull King did not stop along the way. Very soon, he returned to Yujing Mountain to report to Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled slightly. You've worked hard. He clapped his hands lightly. A golden stream of water wrapped in purple qi floated in front of the Kuei Bull King. It was a portion of Kuan Peng's marrow, which contained a large amount of demonic power essence. The Kuei Bull King was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed. Many thanks, Sectmaster. Lin Feng smiled. You have always been diligent and dedicated in your work. Even if someone is missing, it cannot be without you. The Kuei Ox King replied, the other monster kings on this mountain are all alone. Only I, Old Ox, have brought along a large group of clansmen. The sect has allowed us to cultivate on Mount Yujing. The environment is far better than the outside world. This is already a great kindness. Old Ox really doesn't dare to ask for more. Lin Feng waved his hand. Those who follow me only need to do their best. I will never mistreat them. He pointed to the Kuan Peng's marrow. This is just the beginning. Come to me later. I still have something for you. The Kuei Bull King thanked him profusely and left. In front of Lin Feng, there were only two little girls who did not even dare to breathe. They looked at Lin Feng anxiously. When they saw Lin Feng looking at them, they hurriedly bowed together. Greetings, senior. Silently, Lin Feng looked at them. He did not say much. With a flick of his finger, a small light spot flew out. It quickly expanded in the air and turned into a giant formation. It was the yin and yang life and death formation. Before Luo Qingwu could react, she was already thrown into the formation. Then, she saw a giant bell suddenly appear. It changed in the void and turned into a giant door, falling towards the center of the yin and yang life and death formation. Chapter 536. The yin and yang life and death formation did not have more changes at the moment, but only operated the change of life and death. The surging death chi in the death chi stone was enough to kill countless lives, but under the effect of the yin and yang life and death formation, it was all transformed into vigorous vitality and full of vitality. In the array, countless runes emerged, forming 4 smaller array diagrams, surrounding Luo Qingwu in the center. There was white light shrouding the little girl in the 4 array diagrams, and in the sky above her head, Lin Feng's magic treasure, the Bell of Fate, evolved into its first incarnation, turning into the life-creating gate and pressing down. The vigorous vitality in the yin and yang life and death formation rose to the sky and gathered on the life-creating gate. Slowly, the life-creating gate opened with a roar. Inside the gate of life creation, the grand power of the creation of heaven and earth poured down and poured into Luo Qingwu. The little girl only felt warm and sleepy, as if she was immersed in the sea, warm and comfortable. The 4 small spiritual formations surrounding her had completely merged into one, turning into a diamond-shaped magic formation. The magic formation dragged Luo Qingwu down and completely merged with the yin and yang life and death formation itself. As the light flickered, the yin and yang life and death formation also gradually changed its appearance, turning into an extremely huge diamond-shaped formation. Spirit-generating formation, open. With the help of Lin Feng's mind, the power of the formation began to run rapidly, and endless spiritual power began to pour into Luo Qingwu's body. The power of the life-creating gate not only included all the postnatal life phenomena, but also the congenital transformation power of the beginning of heaven and earth. It worked on Luo Qingwu's heavenly accumulating dark bead, which was on the verge of breaking, and the effect was immediate. The heavenly accumulating dark bead, after all, was not a tangible entity. It was formed by the congenital pure yin qi, a little law of the great way of heaven and earth, and the spiritual power of the little girl's bloodline and soul. The bead was now full of cracks, and the mysterious yin qi stored in it had almost dissipated. It was maintained by the petals of the bipolar heavenly flower that Lin Feng had used before. At this moment, with the help of the magic power of the spirit-generating formation, the cracks began to be gradually repaired. The cracks, which had been like a spider web, became thinner and thinner until they were almost completely invisible. Blue spirit light lit up on the bead again, and a trace of cool spirit chi was released from it. The mysterious power domain appeared again. The heavenly accumulating dark spirit pearl even trembled slightly, as if a person who had just returned from the dead had finally come to life and returned to the living from the netherworld. As soon as the pearl was awakened, it immediately began to absorb a large amount of yin qi from the surrounding spirit qi. The heaven accumulating dark spirit pearl's original function was to gather the dark yin qi and slowly nourish the owner's body before slowly absorbing it into the body. He had never swallowed so violently like this before. After the nirvana rebirth, the little lowly's heaven accumulating dark soul pearl was even more powerful than before. At this moment, the pearl was like a burly man who had been starving for several years and could finally eat heartily again. Under the protection of Lin Feng's spirit accumulation array, the little lowly could withstand the intense absorption of spirit qi and would not be injured. Luo Qingwu was in the array with her eyes closed, as if she had fallen into a deep sleep. At this moment, with the awakening of the heaven accumulating dark soul pearl, her eyelashes moved slightly, and she woke up. She felt the changes in her body, and she looked a little dazed. The days after the heaven accumulating dark soul pearl was damaged were the darkest days of her short life. She had imagined countless times how happy it would be if her body could recover. However, the Luo family tried everything they could, but they could not find a way to treat her. Even the Luo family's patriarch, who was in the essence soul realm, was helpless. The medical experts that the family hired were also helpless. The Luo family finally gave up helplessly, and this made the little Loli's mood sink to the bottom of the abyss. At that time, she was almost sentenced to death. The proud daughter of the heavens in the past had instantly fallen to the mortal world. Her parents still pitied her, and the sixth master, Luo Qi, still loved her dearly. However, they could not do anything about Luo Qingwu's situation. No amount of consolation could solve the root of the problem. Going up to Yujing Mountain to seek treatment from Lin Feng was the last hope in the little Loli's heart. But who knew that everything would be so easy? At that moment, Luo Qingwu felt like she was in a dream. She did not experience the ecstasy that she had expected, nor did she cry tears of joy. It was just that happiness had come too suddenly, and the little Loli was caught unprepared. It made her feel like it was unreal. She calmed herself down and looked at Lin Feng, who was looking at her calmly in the array. The little Loli in Red's eyes could not help but turn misty. Uncle Lin, Luo Qingwu choked slightly as she bowed to Lin Feng in the array. Thank you, Uncle Lin. No, thank you, Senior Lin, for saving my lifetime and time again. Lin Feng looked at her and smiled. Little girl, sit cross-legged and focus on your breathing. Luo Qingwu was stunned, but she still obediently sat down and began to cultivate seriously according to the method passed down by her family. Lin Feng extended his right hand and snapped his fingers in the air. Amidst the crisp sound, there was a sudden crackling sound of flames jumping. A milky white flame appeared on his fingertip. It was bright and warm. Although it was a jumping flame, it gave off a gentle feeling. It was the pure young, true fire of the 7 supreme flames in the world. It was the legendary ancestor of all flames, the source and ancestor of the flames of the heaven primal world. It was the purest flame, able to fuse with many other flames and subdue all evils. The great Tao was all things, and yin and yang coexisted. This was the truth of the heavenly Tao, and all creation was unavoidable. However, there were always exceptions to everything. The few rare pure yang and pure yin items were special cases. They were like the 2 poles of the world. They seemed to defy common sense, but in fact, they were faintly compatible with the heavenly Tao. In this world, although pure yin and pure yang objects were not unique, they were extremely rare and hard to come by. Lin Feng had once seized several treasures used by Golden Rock Great Sage and Xiongqi Great Sage to set up the 9-light sky shattering formation in the cloudy forest world. One of them was the dark flower amethyst, which was condensed by pure yin qi. When activated to the extreme, it would not turn into yang, and it was a rare pure yin item. The pure yang true fire in Lin Feng's hands was also a rare pure yang item, without the slightest yin qi. One of the changes in the 6 paths of birth and death of the yin and yang life and death formation was the change of yin and yang. Lin Feng put the dark flower amethyst in it before because it was the treasure that represented the pure yin change of yin and yang. As for the treasure that could activate the pure yang change, Lin Feng had set his eyes on the pure yang true fire since a long time ago. Now that he had the pure yang true fire, Lin Feng could completely activate the yin and yang change of the yin and yang life and death formation. Under the control of Lin Feng, the pure yang true fire entered the formation and burned fiercely. The pure yang qi was transformed by the yin and yang change of the formation and all turned into pure yin qi. With the dark flower amethyst as the core, it radiated a purple brilliance and shone on Luo Qingwu. Under the illumination of the purple brilliance, Luo Qingwu's body trembled. Her 2 small eyebrows frowned slightly and then gradually relaxed. The magic power in her body kept running, and the heavenly yin soul bead began to buzz. The purple brilliance integrated in her body and kept polishing the heavenly yin soul bead. Under the effect of the purple brilliance, the heavenly yin soul bead that had already recovered to its original state changed again. The size of the bead became smaller and smaller, as if it was melting in the purple brilliance. Then, the purple brilliance went all over Luo Qingwu's body, constantly changing her constitution. Gradually, Luo Qingwu's whole body was covered with a layer of purple brilliance, which made her look extremely magical. Originally, the yin qi in the surrounding environment was condensed and refined by the heavenly yin soul bead in her body into pure yin qi. Then, it was stored and nourished her body at the same time. But now, even without the heavenly yin soul bead, a large amount of yin qi still gathered and was absorbed into her body. During this absorption process, the yin qi was automatically purified and absorbed by the little lowly instantly. At this moment, Luo Qingwu's constitution was undergoing an earth-shaking change. Such a constitution could only be achieved by one kind of person, and that was the legendary pure yin body. The best constitution for the human cultivators to practice the yin Taoist law was even better than the inborn heavenly yin soul bead. The pure yin body, the pure yang body, and the perfect yin-yang coexistence body like Yang Qing's were all extremely rare and precious constitutions that could only be encountered by luck. If one practiced the appropriate Taoist law, they would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. In the entire great Tianyuan world, there were only a few people who could beat these constitutions innately. Lin Feng already had a well-thought-out plan. After obtaining the pure yang fire, he had never thought of just repairing the little lowly's broken bead. He wanted to make Luo Qingwu's outstanding innate bone frame improve to a higher level and become even stronger. Although the talent detector showed that the little lowly's bone frame potential was still 9 points, it was 100% certain that the little lowly's bone frame was much stronger than before. If converted to a 100-point system, the original heavenly yin soul bead would only be a little over 90 points, but now it would at least be above 95 points. Lin Feng looked at Luo Qingwu, whose constitution was changing, and smiled. Not bad, just as I expected. Her heavenly yin soul bead does have further potential. The little lowly's change in constitution and improvement in bone frame was a long process that needed to be done slowly and steadily. Lin Feng was not in a hurry. While maintaining the yin and yang life and death formation's yin and yang transformation, he put his consciousness into the system. After Lin Feng advanced to the primordial soul realm, the system upgraded again. This time, the upgrade took a long time and finally ended not long ago. Lin Feng entered the system to check. Sure enough, after the upgrade, there were many treasures suitable for the primordial soul realm. There were even magic treasures. However, the magic treasures were not ready-made magic treasures. They were just the frame of the magic treasures, just like the Bell of Fate. There were also many precious and unique magic treasure embryos in the system. Many magic treasure embryos were very suitable for independent magic treasure models. When the two were combined, a magic treasure could be refined effortlessly. Of course, it was still ridiculously expensive to get them directly from the exchange system. As for the items to be drawn from the roulette lottery system and the dice lottery system, it still depended on one's luck. If one was lucky, there would be many good items, and one could even draw the lottery with their eyes closed. If one was unlucky, there would be few good items, and one would not even bother to look at them. The rules of the lottery system had not changed. However, if one wanted to draw the good items from the exchange system, the collateral must be powerful. Otherwise, the probability would be so low that it would be hopeless. Chapter 537. Before the system was upgraded, Lin Feng had been in seclusion for 7 years in order to break through to the essence soul realm in the mysterious heaven-time light grotto heaven. Some of these lottery chances had already been used by Lin Feng for the roulette lottery system or the dice lottery system, so he had more or less gained something. Apart from this, there was still a portion of the remaining lottery chances which Lin Feng kept and saved up first. There were both good and bad things about this system upgrade. The bad thing was that the monthly lucky draw was gone. From now on, lucky draw opportunities were much more precious. On the other hand, comedy was a new function of the exchange system. In addition to being able to exchange points for items, Lin Feng could now put up items that he did not need and barter them for items in the system. Unlike the lottery system, the collateral for the lottery had to be items that were not produced by the system, and all of them had to come from the real world. And this time, the exchange system's newly open exchange function had no restrictions on the source, and anything could be used for exchange. This made it so that even if Lin Feng drew a useless item, he could still make use of it. Of course, it was up to the system to determine whether the exchange was equivalent or not. The chips that Lin Feng provided were too poor to be exchanged for what he wanted, so he had to continue to increase the price. Sometimes it was necessary to exchange several items together for one item in the exchange system. On the other hand, if the item Lin Feng offered was of a higher value and the item he chose was of a lower value, then the result would be the opposite. One of Lin Feng's chips could be exchanged for several items from the system. However, the reason why Lin Feng valued this function was because he wanted to make good use of waste in exchange for high-end good from the system. For example, Lin Feng had his eyes on one thing. It was one of the few fully formed Dharma treasures in the exchange system. It was already a completed product and could be used directly after being exchanged. This magic treasure was called the Five Divine Command Token, and it had the appearance of a black command token that exuded an ancient aura. According to the system's explanation, the command token was refined using a special technique, and the honorific names of the 5 emperors of ancient times were inscribed on it. The will of the 5 emperors had been fused into it, causing its might to be extremely formidable. Especially its defensive ability had reached the pinnacle, and it was impervious to all techniques. In the history of the great heaven primal world, the primordial era was a time when the demon race dominated the world. Many primordial great demons and their clans ruled over the heavens. The human race was weak and belonged to the bottom of the hierarchy. During the last years of the archaic epoch, the human race rose and fought against the monster race. The war lasted for many years, and many human experts were born and then fell. Many powerful sects were born and then died. During this process, there were a few human prodigies who established dynasties and led the human race to fight against the demon race. The human dynasties of the primordial era were different from the Great Zhou dynasty and the Great Qin dynasty. The human emperor of that time truly ruled over the human race. The status of the human emperor in the distant ancient era was the same as that of the current saint emperors of the Yao race. They were the supreme commanders of the human race that countless experts had to obey. In the continuous battles with the demon clan, more than one Ren Huang had fallen, but more and more powerful cultivators had emerged. In the end, the battle with the demon clan had been earth-shattering. The great Tianyuan world, which had originally been a single entity, was divided into 2 poles, becoming the vast land of infinite wasteland and the divine land. The human clan and the demon clan each occupied one side. With the creation of the 2 worlds as a symbol, the archaic epoch ended and the archaic epoch entered. In the archaic epoch, the human world of the divine land was still ruled by the human emperor. The dynasties changed, there were abdications, and there was chaos. But overall, the human emperor was still the supreme ruler. His words carried enormous weight. In the archaic epoch, there were hundreds of sects contending for supremacy. Countless powerful cultivators rose and established their own orthodoxies. But as more and more cultivation sects rose, the conflict between them and the human emperor grew. When it came to the last ancient human emperor, he acted arbitrarily and tyrannically, causing the conflict to develop to the extreme. In the end, the conflict completely exploded. With the fall of this human emperor, the archaic epoch ended and the divine land entered the middle epoch. Since then, although powerful cultivation dynasties were born, there were no more human emperors who ruled over the entire human race like in the archaic epoch and the archaic epoch. Powerful sects and sacred grounds began to become the mainstream of the human race cultivation world. As a result, there was a saying, 10,000 years of sex, 1,000 years of dynasties. The Tai Palace of the Great Zhou Dynasty, Liangpan, was a human emperor in the archaic epoch. The Tai Dharma treasure was unearthed by Liangpan and restored. Even now, it had not been completely restored, but it was already extremely powerful. The 5 divine badges in Lin Feng's system were not the treasures of the human emperor. Instead, after the archaic epoch, there were powerful cultivators who admired the immemorial epoch and the archaic epoch. After feeling the majesty and power of the human emperor, they focused on studying and refining the Dharma treasure. Even so, this Dharma treasure was extremely extraordinary. Yu Xintao's primordial spirit was sealed by Lin Feng using the mysterious sky sealing banner. The Yu clan's 2 treasures, the mysterious underworld treasure book and the mysterious underworld bow, both fell into his hands. Among them, the mysterious underworld treasure book's original spirit was annihilated under Lin Feng's attack, which was equivalent to it dropping in rank and was no longer a Dharma treasure. However, this treasure was the source of the Yu clan's magical techniques. Even without the magic treasure's original spirit, Lin Feng could still extract the mysterious underworld art and mysterious underworld true water from it. And the mysterious underworld bow was still a Dharma treasure, so Lin Feng wanted it. After suppressing the mysterious underworld bow's magic treasure's original spirit consciousness with his own tyrannical magic power, Lin Feng directly handed it over to the system to exchange for the 5 divine badges that he wanted. As it turned out, Lin Feng's eyes were still very sharp. Exchanging the mysterious underworld bow for 5 divine badges, the system's reply was that it was not equal. The value of the 5 divine badges was even higher. Just 1 mysterious underworld bow was not enough to exchange for them. Without hesitation, Lin Feng also handed over the useless treasures that he had saved up from the previous few lucky draws. If 1 wasn't enough, he added 2, and if 2 wasn't enough, he added 3. Aside from the mysterious underworld bow, Lin Feng also put up 8 more items, finally exchanging for 5 divine badges. Holding the black badge, Lin Feng felt the ripples of power within it and discovered that a life consciousness had just begun to sprout. It seems that the completed Dharma treasures directly exchanged from the system are all spirit-nurturing level early-stage Dharma treasures that have just been refined. Lin Feng understood in his heart. Although its power is slightly weaker, and it's just starting from scratch, it's easy to control. 5 words were engraved on the 5 divine badges according to the positions of the 5 elements. Silently, a light flowed on each word. If one looked closely at the light, they would discover that the light was all formed from dense patterns containing a strong power. The word sure was engraved in the middle, representing the powerful will of the first emperor of the immemorial era. The first emperor was the first human emperor in the history of human cultivation. It was from the first emperor that the human race rose and officially started to fight against the monster race. The top was set as the north, water, and Xia was engraved. It came from the will of the human emperor of the immemorial era, Xia Huang. The left was set as the west, metal, and Tai was engraved. It came from the Tai emperor of the immemorial era, the human emperor who first refined the Tai emperor palace. At the same time, when the Tai emperor ruled over the human race, he finally defeated the monster race and ended the immemorial era. Thus, the Tai emperor was the last human emperor of the immemorial era. The right was set as the east, wood, and Chong was engraved. It came from the Chong emperor of the immemorial era, the publicly recognized benevolent emperor. During the rise of the human race, he fell in the war against the monster race. The bottom was set as the south, fire, and ancient was engraved. It came from the ancient emperor of the immemorial era. Looking at the 5 divine tokens, Lin Feng pondered for a moment and put away the magic treasures. On the other side, the strengthening of Luo Qingwu's physique by the yin and yang life and death formation had come to an end. She was only 1 step away from the final success. Lin Feng gently clapped his hands and streams of supernatural power were injected into the yin and yang life and death formation, finishing the last step for the improvement of Luo Qingwu's physique. The purple light emitted by the netherworld amethyst gradually faded, and the yin and yang life and death formation returned to silence. Silently, the little girl opened her eyes and felt the changes in her body. She didn't need to do it deliberately. As long as she simply practiced breathing according to the Taoist method, she could separate the yin qi in the surrounding spiritual qi and guide it into her body. In the process of entering the body, the yin qi would be constantly condensed and turned into the essence of pure yin qi. In such a state of practice, she would naturally get twice the result with half the effort, and the efficiency was off the charts. Luo Qingwu was in a daze for a long time before she came to her senses. She looked at Lin Feng timidly and said, "Say, Senior," Lin Feng said lightly, "your heavenly dark soul bead has been upgraded to a pure yin body. In this way, your practice will be more smooth." Luo Qingwu wanted to say something, but she felt that her throat was blocked by something. Lin Feng's omnipotent powers amazed her. Since she was a child, she knew that she was extremely talented. She was born with a heavenly dark soul bead in her body, which was a physique second only to the pure yin body. Because of this, she was valued by her family since she was a child, and almost all her requests would be granted. After her heavenly dark soul bead was damaged, her family was extremely nervous, but they couldn't repair it no matter how hard they tried. As a result, her status in the family plummeted. At that moment, Luo Qingwu felt even more the significance of the heavenly dark soul bead to her. But now, not only did Lin Feng help her repair the heavenly dark soul bead, but he also upgraded her physique to the legendary pure yin body. It was a physique that was more powerful and rarer than the heavenly dark soul bead. Apart from being shocked and impressed, the little loli felt that her face was slightly burning. She felt even more ashamed that she had wrongly blamed Lin Feng and argued with him previously. She kowtowed to Lin Feng and choked with sobs as she said, "Uncle Lin, Xiao Wu is sorry." Lin Feng smiled and gently helped her up. "You and I are fated, so I will extend my hand to help you. To me, it's just a little effort, and to you, it's a fated chance. However, how you walk your path in the future still depends on you." The path in the future. The little loli's eyes were a little blank, but she suddenly had an idea. Fated chance. The path in the future, she kowtowed again and said, "Xiao Wu wants to be apprenticed to Uncle Lin. Uncle Lin, please accept Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu will be obedient and cultivate well. I won't be lazy anymore." After saying that, the little girl didn't dare to breathe. She kowtowed on the ground and only felt that her little heart was about to jump out of her throat. She was extremely nervous, and the courage that she had summoned just now disappeared as she spoke. At this moment, she was like a little prisoner, waiting for Lin Feng's final sentence. Chapter 538. Luo Qingwu knelt on the ground, nervously waiting for Lin Feng's final verdict. Lin Feng looked at the little girl in front of him and smiled. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly felt a thought from the god of war's clone in the void battlefield. Although it's very weak, is this little Lin's mana fluctuation? Lin Feng frowned slightly and looked at Luo Qingwu. He said indifferently, "I've just said that your path in the future depends on yourself. Don't be hot-headed and make decisions on the spur of the moment. Before making a choice, think clearly about your choice and your decision. What's the purpose behind it, and what impact it will have in the end?" Luo Qingwu raised her head and looked at Lin Feng blankly. After a moment of hesitation, she asked, Senior Lin, Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu doesn't really understand." Lin Feng faintly smiled. "So, think about it yourself. Think clearly before saying anything." Luo Qingwu blinked. Some vague thoughts flashed through her mind. She felt that she understood some of Lin Feng's words, but her thoughts were not very clear. "Go and rest first." Lin Feng smiled. With a wave of his hand, he sent Luo Qingwu to the desolate Sky Valley to accompany Jun Zining, who had returned there earlier. After sending off the little girl, Lin Feng summoned Xiao Yin, Shi Tianhao, and Yu Hongyan, the three disciples in the golden elixir period. He smiled and said, "Although it's a little early, I can let you all broaden your horizons and see the void battlefield in advance." As he spoke, Lin Feng used his mana to wrap up Xiao Yin and the others. Then, he pointed his right index finger between his eyebrows and swapped the space between his main body and the God of War's clone. This was the mysterious effect of Lin Feng's Two Realms Void technique. Even if the God of War's clone was in the chaotic void battlefield, he could still swap places. The War God clone returned to Jade Capital Mountain, while Lin Feng's main body went to where the clone was just now. He was currently in the middle of a turbulent storm in the void battlefield. After passing through the storm, the surrounding space was still very chaotic, but it was no longer as dangerous. Lin Feng released Xiao Yin and the others. There are many dangers in the void battlefield. Even with Xiao Yin and Shi Tianhao's strength, they wouldn't be safe in there. Yu Hongyan was even more so. If they were to enter the void battlefield on their own, it would be hard to predict whether they would be able to leave the void battlefield and return to the vast thousand domains. Under normal circumstances, only primordial spirit realm cultivators could enter and leave the void battlefield freely. Yuanying stage cultivators could only rely on luck to leave if they did not have any special methods. Before he accepted Wang Lin as his disciple, Lin Feng had once accidentally opened a crack in the void battlefield. He had only stopped at the edge of the void battlefield for a while, but he had also helped the Xiandao sect's Yuanying patriarch, Pu Beizi, to leave the void battlefield. If it were not for Lin Feng's mistake, Pu Beizi might not have been able to return to the Divine Land so early. If the cultivators of the Golden Elixir period entered the void battlefield without any special treasures, they would most likely be protected by their own primordial spirit realm cultivators. Now that they had Lin Feng's protection, Xiao Yin and the others would naturally be safe. They looked at the chaotic and barren world in front of them and felt that the spirit chi here was vast but extremely abundant. All of them were amazed. I have long heard of the void battlefield. Seeing it today, it is indeed different from the vast thousand domains and the medium thousand domains. Yu Hongyan sighed and said, "In comparison, the void battlefield in the Divine Land is as stable as land, while this place is like the ocean." Lin Feng led them forward and said with a smile, "The void battlefield did not originally exist. At the end of the primordial era, the heaven primordial world was split into two worlds, the vast land of infinite mainland and the Divine Land. This powerful tearing force created the void battlefield. However, the space was chaotic and the boundaries were hard to understand. The void battlefield existed independently and was not at the border between the vast land of infinite mainland and the Divine Land." Lin Feng looked at the chaotic space and said with a smile, "In this chaotic area, danger and treasures coexist. From this angle, it would not be wrong to say that it is like the ocean." Shi Tianhao had not spoken since entering the void battlefield. He kept looking around, and his lips were tightly pursed. This place was closely related to the first half of his life. Because of his birth, his grandfather entered the void battlefield to collect treasures for him and then disappeared. Later, his parents also entered this place in order to find his grandfather. Before leaving, they placed him in Shi Tiany's house, which finally led to the tragedy. There was still no news of his grandfather. Not long ago, his parents finally left the void battlefield and returned to the Divine Land after going through many hardships. However, they were ambushed and had no choice but to return to this place to seek refuge. The news that came was that his mother was seriously injured, and it was unknown whether she was alive or not. Xiao Yin and Yu Hongyan looked at Shi Tianhao and sighed. Xiao Yin patted him on the shoulder and said, "Don't worry. The heavens help the good. Your parents will be fine." Shi Tianhao nodded and said quietly, "I know. I want to find my parents, and at the same time, I want to seek justice for them and for myself. Big brother, you help me get rid of the Yu family." As for some people in the Shi family, I will soon settle the score with them and my little brother. Xiao Yin smiled faintly and turned his head to look at the vast void, his gaze somewhat complicated. Little junior brother still has the hope of reuniting with his parents, but I'll never see my father and mother again. His mother is still okay. She died of a natural illness, but his father died from serious injuries after fighting with someone. But what makes Xiao Yin even more depressed and indignant is that he wants revenge, but he doesn't know who his enemy is. At least Shi Tianhao knew that he had to go find Shi Tianyi, but he could only be angry. Just when he was feeling angry, Xiao Yin suddenly froze and took out a jade talisman. There was a faint golden light flashing on the jade talisman. Lin Feng and the others looked over. Xiao Yin said, "Master, Zhen'er is also in the void battlefield." This jade talisman was given to him by Xiao Zhen. Xiao Zhen had another jade talisman that was exactly the same. The two jade talismans existed in pairs. When they were close to each other, they would sense each other and had the function of communication. They could confirm each other's position in space. This function was similar to the Kongming heart-linking rings given to Jieyu and by Guang couple in Taishu Temple. However, this was not because Xiao Zhen had any special ideas, nor was it because her family was scheming. It was just the pure thoughts of a little girl. Xiao Yin tried to contact Xiao Zhen, but he could not get through. The void battlefield was not only chaotic in space, the flow of spirit energy was also chaotic. She is very close, or else there would not even be a flash. Lin Feng said, "Let's try and see if we can confirm her position." Xiao Yin nodded. After trying, a look of surprise appeared on his face. "Although it is very weak, I can locate her." Lin Feng took the jade talisman and sensed it. Sure enough, he could locate her position. And Xiao Zhen seemed to have stopped to do something. Her position did not change at all. Lin Feng rushed in that direction and spread out his divine sense. He could vaguely feel the void, thunder, tribulation raging. Could it be that she came here to undergo the thunder tribulation? Lin Feng raised his brows. He carefully sensed the void in that direction. He could vaguely feel other energy ripples, but the space was chaotic. It seemed that the energy ripples were far and near. Lin Feng smiled and said to Xiao Yin and the other two, "Tianhao, Hong Yin, go with your eldest senior brother. Your eldest senior brother is going to find his little wife. You two go there and try your luck. Maybe there will be some extra gains. I'm going to look for little Lin. My Dharma body will follow you." Xiao Yin and the other two immediately accepted the order. They followed the jade talisman's guidance and headed towards the void where Xiao Zhen was. Lin Feng, on the other hand, rushed in another direction based on Wang Lin's arcane energy. In the chaotic void, other than Lin Feng and his disciple, there were naturally other cultivators. However, the void battlefield was vast. No matter how many people there were, they would only be a drop in the ocean. Therefore, the void battlefield seemed extremely desolate. Only some places where treasures were produced would attract many cultivators. For example, in a space, there was a huge black rock floating in the void like a boat. The rock emitted a treasure light and overflowed with spirit chi. A large number of cultivators gathered here. They all had their eyes on this black rock. This seems to be a star debris. There are many treasures in it. They are all excellent refining materials. Unfortunately, they are all mixed together. It is very difficult to separate them. What do you know? See? The light of the debris of the stars is like the breathing of a human. It's obvious that some kind of spiritual treasure is about to be born. Everyone here is waiting for that spiritual treasure to mature. Just as they were talking, someone suddenly exclaimed, "The light is flashing more violently." Everyone present held their breath. The void suddenly became quiet. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the huge black rock. The black rock flashed more and more rapidly. In the end, it connected into one. The light was inextinguishable, illuminating the dark void in all directions. The crowd moved. The space exploded. A group of powerhouses shuttled through space and pounced on the black rock. Among the people present, the lowest cultivation level was at the early stage yuanying. All kinds of Dharma spells and mystical powers were flying in the sky. A golden light flashed and passed through the crowd. It was so fast that most people could not react. It was a late-stage demon king, golden-winged rock. After some people noticed it, they shouted angrily. Suddenly, a large number of Dharma spells fell on the back of the golden-winged rock. The golden-winged rock was not afraid. Golden light flashed all over its body. Every golden feather was engraved with an array pattern. It flapped its wings and immediately emitted thousands of golden lights, destroying all the Dharma spells that were attacking it. Everyone gasped. Even the late nascent soul realm or late demon king realm experts had grim looks on their faces. The golden-winged rock was an extremely powerful race among the many demon races in Tianwang mainland. Their leader, the Golden Rock Great Sage, was ranked third among the 10 sages of the demon race. The golden-winged rock was gifted with powerful mystical powers. It was ferocious in battle and extremely fast. Few powerhouses of the same level could match it. This late-stage demon king golden-winged rock was extremely powerful. After blocking the attacks of the others, it was about to land on the black rock. But right at this moment, he felt a pair of eyes staring at him, and his entire body couldn't help but shudder. When he turned around to look, he saw a tall young man walking slowly towards him from the sky. The young man had a handsome figure and jet black hair that hung down to his shoulders. The strange thing was that although his eyes were closed, the golden-winged rock could clearly feel that it was being stared at by a pair of terrifying eyes. A human cultivator in the crowd recognized the tall young man and exclaimed, "Is that the person with double pupils from the Sure family?" Chapter 539. The dual-pupiled Sure Tianyi had been the center of attention since he was born. He was known as the #1 genius of the younger generation, a descendant of God. After the rise of the Xiangate Sky sect and the rise of Sure Tianhao, Xiao Yin, and the others for a long period of time, even though the human cultivation world admitted that they were monstrous and heaven-defying, most people still held a common view, and that is that the dual-pupiled Sure Tianyi was still slightly better. This was the prestige that Sure Tianyi had built up over a decade of fame. It was extremely rare among the younger generation. Following his battle with the tiny Sure Tianhao, he, who was already the center of attention, became the focus of the divine land. To reach the Yuanying stage before the age of 17, it was widely known that he was the youngest genius in the history of the human cultivation world to reach the nascent soul stage in the divine land. Especially when he had the dual-pupiled body, the supreme Tao foundation, the core formation, all the way to the nascent soul stage, and even entered the #1 cultivation holy land of the human race, the Taishu Temple. No one knew how powerful he was now. The rock was slightly shocked when it saw Sure Tianyi. However, it knew that its demonic power was also very powerful, and it was also a late-stage demon king. Even if Sure Tianyi had reached the nascent soul stage, he was still no match for it. A dead genius is nothing. It was a big mistake for the Taishu Temple to let you enter the void battleground, the rock suddenly said in a cold voice. Sure Tianyi's eyes were still closed. He said lightly, "That's mine. Don't take it. You will die if you take it from me." The golden-winged rock sneered, "Devouring and refining your soul, eyes, and body will definitely be a rare supplement for me." Sure Tianyi didn't answer. He stepped in the void and walked step by step. It seemed slow, but he arrived in front of the rock in an instant. He stretched his hand forward, and the top of his palm lit up. Within the light, there were 9 orifices. A loud and clear song came from the orifices, and a powerful force spread out as if a god was awakening. In each orifice, there seemed to be a god living. 9 orifices, 9 gods awakening at the same time, shaking the world. Supreme 9 orifices true god treasure spell. The rock's expression changed slightly. In one of the orifices, the light condensed into a mysterious talisman. It rose and turned into a vast stream of light, crashing down on the rock's head. This spell of the Taishu Temple was very powerful. After the first talisman rose, a second and third talisman rose from the other orifices. The powerful mana became more and more powerful. In the end, it was as unstoppable as a torrent, as if a god punishment from the nine heavens. The golden-winged giant rock let out a shrill cry and shook its wings. Thousands of golden lights were like a rainstorm, colliding with Shur Tiany's supreme 9 apertures real god treasure incantation. Between the two of them, one had a higher cultivation base while the other had a more exquisite spell. For a moment, they were evenly matched. When this scene fell into the eyes of the spectators, they all revealed a look of shock. An early nascent soul late-stage fighting Yao King is actually a tie. The dual-pupiled individual is indeed extraordinary. At this moment, Shur Tiany's eyes, which had been closed, opened Yuan Ying's eyes. Suddenly, it was as if the clouds had dispersed, and the sun and moon were in the sky. His eyes were like the sun and moon, looking at the world. Countless rays of divine light shot out from his eyes. Shur Tiany glanced at the golden-winged rock, and the offensive power of the supreme 9 apertures true god's chief formula suddenly surged. The battle with the golden-winged rock gradually turned from a tie to an advantage, and in the end, it directly defeated the golden-winged rock's divine sense. The onlookers were puzzled. What is the use of this double pupil? It can increase the power of the spell instantly. But I don't feel that his spell has become stronger. It seems that the rock's magical power has weakened. No, the rock's magical power has not weakened, but it was inexplicably defeated. The unknown was always the most terrifying. The onlookers were shocked, and so was the rock. It no longer dared to underestimate the opponent in front of it. Such a person has appeared in the younger generation of the human race. I must report to the Rock Emperor and kill him as soon as possible. Otherwise, he will be a disaster in the future. With this thought, the rock no longer hesitated. Light and shadow appeared above its head, and a rock that was completely made of light appeared. It spread its wings, covering the sky. It was its heaven and earth dharma. The light rock pounced at Shur Tiany. Shur Tiany's expression was indifferent, and his body was suddenly covered in a layer of golden light. This was not some kind of spell, but a sudden explosion of the power of his flesh and blood. The power of his surging physique was as hot as a furnace. It made the rock shudder slightly, as if it was facing a super fierce beast like itself. Shur Tiany stood there, his fists in a fist stance. As soon as this stance appeared, an unshakable power that could control the past and the future was revealed. The golden light was the Buddha light. Immovable King Buddha body. Cultivating the immovable King Buddha Sutra of the 5-direction Rulai Sutra allowed one to obtain the strongest protective martial arts mystique, the immovable King Buddha body, and the Great Day Rulai Sutra's Great Day Rulai Sutra's Great Day Rulai Sutra, one for offense and one for defense. This was the essence of the Buddhist martial arts. Cultivating the immovable King Buddha body would allow one to have an invincible body. The strength of one's physique was extremely strong, almost reaching the limit of what a cultivator could reach at their current realm. The Great Tempest Monastery was the sect with the strongest martial arts mystique in the Divine Land in the past. Shur Tiany flashed the immovable King Buddha body, then raised his hand to form a fist, striking towards the rock's heaven and earth dharma. Immovable Sumeru Zen fist. It was fine if he didn't move, but once he did, it would be like the collapse of a Mount Meru. The rock thought to itself, even if you cultivate both the Taishu Temple and the Great Tempest Monastery, the power of my heaven and earth dharma is not something that an early Yuanian cultivator like you can handle. Just as he was thinking about this, the rock saw Shur Tiany's eyes flicker slightly. Immediately after, both sides clashed. The violent power shattered the space, turning a large area of the void near the Black Mountain into a chaotic vacuum state. The rock's face was filled with disbelief. In that clash just now, he was actually the one at a disadvantage. He had flashed his heaven and earth dharma, but he still couldn't take down this early Yuanian human lad. The onlookers were also dumbfounded. The Dharma power of heaven and earth creates a huge gap in strength between the late nascent soul stage and the middle nascent soul stage, not to mention the gap between the early nascent soul stage and the late nascent soul stage. But now the golden winged rock is actually at a disadvantage. It's recorded in the ancient books that those with dual pupils have a nimble spirit and exquisite techniques. However, their physical bodies are slightly weaker. It's said that there's a balance between heaven and earth, and there's definitely a weakness for those with dual pupils. But to think that Sher Tiany's physical body is actually this strong, it should be the credit of the immovable Rulai Sutra. But isn't he a disciple of the Taishu Temple? How can he be proficient in the supreme techniques of Buddhism? In the void, Lin Feng stood leisurely at the side, watching the people in front of him fight around the black rock in full swing. His gaze fell on Sher Tiany, and he smiled. This lad is really slippery. He's also someone who likes to hide his strength and trump cards. However, with Lin Feng's current eyesight, he only needs to take a look at a lot of things, and he can roughly understand the root of it. For example, the reason why Sher Tiany could gain the upper hand in the battle with the rock was not because of the secret technique of the Taishu Temple, the Supreme Nine Apertures Real God's Treasure technique, nor was it because of the immovable King Buddha body of the Great Lane Temple's martial path technique. Indeed, these two top techniques helped him, with his early Yuanian cultivation, to challenge the late Demon King Golden Winged Rock. However, if he only had these two things, then he could only barely protect himself. After all, the Golden Winged Rock's innate mystical abilities and racial inheritance were among the best in the demon race. Its strength was outstanding among experts of the same level. The decisive factor that allowed Sher Tiany to gain the upper hand in the battle was actually his pair of dual pupils. Although it was just a fleeting glimpse, Lin Feng had already vaguely seen the unique function of his pair of eyes. Sher Tiany's dual pupils could discern falsehoods and see through the truth. His pair of eyes could accurately capture the flow of spiritual energy and energy waves in the process of the other party's technique. From there, he could find the flaws and loopholes. If the other party's technique had not been cultivated to the level of great perfection, there would definitely be many loopholes. Even if it was cultivated to the level of great perfection, the technique itself could still have loopholes and would not be truly flawless. Flawless, that was the heavenly Tao. And as long as there were gaps and loopholes, Sher Tiany's dual pupils could see through them, thus avoiding the strong and attacking the weak. Therefore, it was not that the power of his technique had increased, nor was it that the power of the Golden Winged Rock's technique had weakened. Instead, it was that he had found the weak points of the Golden Winged Rock's demonic technique that could not be taken care of. Then, he took advantage of them and disintegrated them. With this brat's love of keeping his trump cards and his love of preserving his strength, this ability that he is displaying now should not be the full power of the dual pupils. It is merely the tip of the iceberg. Lin Feng watched the battle between Sher Tiany and the Golden Winged Rock from the side and revealed a smile. Not bad, not bad. This is what an old enemy should look like. The stronger you are, the greater the gains Tiny Tot will gain from defeating you. In the battlefield, the Golden Winged Rock was at a disadvantage and lost inexplicably. He was bewildered and did not dare to continue fighting. He wanted to retreat. The Golden Winged Rock's flying speed could be said to be extremely fast in the demon race. If he wanted to leave, few could stop him. However, Sher Tiany's expression did not change. His dual pupils looked indifferently at the Golden Winged Rock. Space and time distorted, and the Golden Winged Rock suddenly realized that its speed had actually slowed down. And Sher Tiany took one step at a time, as if he was walking on a flight of stairs in the void. With a few steps, he had already caught up to him. Seeing that Sher Tiany was fierce but unwilling to give up on the black rock, the surrounding cultivators all changed targets. Originally, they were besieging the Golden Winged Rock, but now they were besieging Sher Tiany. Sher Tiany's dual pupils rotated, and he casually waved his hand. It was the Sher family's inherited technique, the Great White Dragon technique. As the golden light flashed, it was incomparably sharp and cut through the void. Although the Great White Dragon technique was the Sure family's inherited technique and the treasure of the clan, it was still slightly inferior to the supreme Nine Apertures True God's Flame technique and the immovable Sumru Buddhist fist. However, at this moment, in Sure Tiany's hands, it was abnormally marvelous and incomparably sharp. As the golden dragon shadow flew, countless flowing lights shot out, repelling the besiegers one by one. Every attack of his was aimed at the opponent's most uncomfortable and weakest spot. In a casual manner, he defeated the enemy. For a moment, the dual pupils, Sure Tiany, brazenly swept through the entire field. Almost no one below the late stage of Yuanying was a match for him. Even the late-stage Yuanying experts could not do anything to him. Chapter 540. Seeing Sure Tiany sweep through the crowd and walk towards the black rock, Lin Feng couldn't help but smile. His smile was unscrupulous. "Kid, there's a surprise waiting for you." However, Lin Feng's eyes quickly flashed. It's getting lively. Why is this kid here too? He looked to the other side of the void. A crack had appeared there, and a youth dressed in luxurious purple robes with a golden crown on his head and a bright yellow belt around his waist walked out. This youth was extremely well-proportioned and had short hair. His face was handsome, and his forehead was full. His temples were surrounded by a faint golden color like two real suns. This was the #1 genius of the Great Zhou dynasty's younger generation, Marquis Jinghuan. His hands were behind his back, and he had a leisurely expression. He stared at Sure Tiany and clicked his tongue. The power of the dual pupils is indeed extraordinary. Sure Tiany turned around and glanced indifferently at Marquis Jinghuan. His dual pupils were like the alternating sun and moon, yin and yang. Marquis Jinghuan smiled. "The more I look, the more I feel that such a good thing should belong to this marquis. I know you, Marquis Jinghuan of the Great Zhou, Liang'an. You didn't originally have this surname, but because of your outstanding military service, the Emperor of Zhou bestowed upon you the imperial surname." Sure Tiany said indifferently. "In reality, you are Liang An's illegitimate son. You have received many benefits from the Emperor of Zhou, Liang Pan, and can even walk the world with your real name. However, this is the end of it. The throne of the Great Zhou dynasty will not be passed on to you." Marquis Jinghuan snorted. This marquis has never cared about that throne. If there must be anything in the Great Zhou dynasty that attracts this marquis, it has to be the Grand Imperial Palace. He looked at Sure Tiany and said with a faint smile, "Didn't you also cut off the Emperor of Qin? Stonefeather's thoughts?" Sure Tiany said nonchalantly, "People strive for higher places, and water flows to lower places." Marquis Jinghuan clapped and smiled. "Well said. Unfortunately, that throne can only be filled by one person. You want it. This marquis also wants it, and many other people want it. What should we do? It's mine, so no one can take it from me. You'll die if you steal it from me." Sure Tiany's tone was indifferent. His dual pupils shone brightly, making him look even more intimidating. Marquis Jinghuan laughed. "Unfortunately, it's not yours." He looked up at the black boulder not far from Sure Tiany and continued, "This one isn't, and neither are the others." As he spoke, he suddenly raised his palm and closed his fingers. This movement was extremely violent. The entire space swayed along with the movement of his palm. It was as if he had forcefully uprooted 5 towering mountains from the ground. In the next moment, Marquis Jinghuan's palm pressed down on Sure Tiany. Grand Emperor Scripture, 5 mountains toppling the heavens. The violent physical strength of his body caused a part of the world to collapse with a single palm. He was a pure martial cultivator, and his physical body was at the peak of perfection. He had already reached the limits of a nascent soul cultivator. Even if Sure Tiany had the immovable King Buddha body to protect him, he would not be able to withstand this blow. If Sure Tiany was also a late Yuanying cultivator, he could rely on the defensive power of the immovable King Buddha body to withstand it. But now he had to attack. Marquis Jinghuan's palm strike was even more ferocious than the Golden Rock's Dharma idol. Marquis Jinghuan, who was a pure martial cultivator, had merged his Dharma idol with his physical body. With a casual strike, he could mobilize his greatest strength. The sun and moon ensured Tianyi's dual pupils rotated, as if day and night were alternating. His palms came together, forming the immovable Vajra seal and clashing with Marquis Jinghuan's move. This time, he did not gain any advantage. Instead, he was at a disadvantage. Although his dual pupils could see the flaws in Marquis Jinghuan's martial arts, the other party was too strong. Even if he was weak, he was still incomparably strong compared to others. Sure, Tianyi was at a disadvantage in terms of cultivation level, but he was extremely strong. His dual pupils seemed to have solidified, covering Marquis Jinghuan. In that instant, Marquis Jinghuan felt his movements slow down. Sure, Tianyi's body moved suddenly, and he had already floated out of the attack range of his palm. With this delay, Sure Tianyi's body suddenly moved, and he had already floated out of the attack range of his palm. The spectators were mesmerized. The prodigies of the Great Zhou Empire and the Great Qin Empire's respective younger generation all displayed astonishing strength. They completely surpassed the limits of their age and completely surpassed the standard of strength that could be used to judge one's strength. They found it fascinating, but Lin Feng's mouth twitched slightly. The two of you are actually fighting. That's not appropriate. Youngsters, have you picked up the wrong script? He looked at the two of them as if he was watching a show. One of them has high attributes and powerful skills, while the other relies on equipment. If you don't show off your equipment, you might be countered by an opponent with a lower realm than you. Marquis Jinghuan looked at Sure Tianyi, a faint smile on his face. Can those eyes of yours really slow down my movements, or are they tampering with the flow of time? Sure Tianyi did not answer. He clapped his hands, and a large amount of light gathered. He was about to switch from defense to offense. Marquis Jinghuan did not care at all. Just as he was about to continue attacking, his expression suddenly changed. He glanced at Sure Tianyi and the black boulder, somewhat disappointedly, and shook his head. We can only stop here for today. I have more important matters to attend to. Sure Tianyi turned to look at the black boulder beside him and said indifferently, I won't see you off. Marquis Jinghuan stared at him and suddenly laughed. Sure Tianyi, you are not the youngest Yuanian cultivator in history. Sure Tianyi said indifferently, I know. The youngest Yuanian cultivator in human history is eldest senior brother Lin Daoan. He formed his nascent soul at the age of 15. However, I will surpass him in the end. He stepped into the nascent soul realm before he was 100 years old. I will be faster than him. Sure Tianyi's eyes flashed with light, filled with confidence. As for you, you are nothing. Marquis Jinghuan laughed. There's no need to argue. Everything depends on the outcome. I don't have the time to bicker with you. However, I will be back soon. If you drag things out here for too long, this treasure will belong to me in the end. When that happens, even your eyeballs and your other treasures will be left here. As he spoke, Marquis Jinghuan tore through the void and left. Lin Feng released his spiritual sense and silently sensed his surroundings. He couldn't help but smile strangely. This was because he sensed that Marquis Jinghuan was heading in the direction of Xiaoyan's group. There, the void lightning tribulation crisscrossed, forming a nearly dead zone. At the center of the lightning tribulation, a faint golden light flickered like a small flame in the midst of a raging storm. Silently stood a handsome youth at the edge of the lightning tribulation. He was dressed in white and had short, prickly hair. He looked identical to Marquis Jinghuan, but this was one of his avatars. Marquis Jinghuan's avatar gazed into the distant horizon. There, black light flashed. The imperishable imperial flag had opened up its inner space. Within the heavenly grotto heaven created by the black flag, torrential waters surged like raging waves in a vast ocean. The white-robed cultivator under Marquis Jinghuan's command was in charge of this enormous array. With the help of the imperishable imperial flag, The two worked together to trap an old man. The old man was enraged. He hadn't expected that the other party would possess a manifestation-grade magic treasure and had been trapped in the cave. However, he was a primordial soul cultivator. The other party hadn't reached the primordial soul stage, so he couldn't activate the imperishable Imperial Flag's full power. Even with the help of a powerful array, it could only hinder him slightly. The old man was about to charge out when Marquis Jing Huan slowly said, "You can charge out, but I just need to disturb you a little, and that little beauty undergoing the lightning tribulation will immediately be reduced to ashes. If you dare move, I will definitely kill you." The old man's gaze turned cold. He had reached the primordial soul stage and had a firm will. How could he be easily threatened? Although he was worried about the girl and the lightning tribulation, he wouldn't stop because of this. Marquis Jing Huan smiled slightly. "So, don't be impatient. I have no ill intentions. I came here with the intention of asking for the phoenix." The old man stared at him. "The magic treasure that trapped me is the imperishable Imperial Flag, right? You're that Liang and from the Great Zhou dynasty?" He had also recognized the imperishable Imperial Flag. After thinking for a bit, he realized Marquis Jing Huan's identity. Marquis Jing Huan clapped his hands and smiled. "The ancient emperor bloodline is indeed knowledgeable. Then you should also recognize this magic treasure." He flipped his palm, and the ancient emperor's saber appeared in his hand. Ancient emperor's saber? The old man glanced at it. It's called the ancient emperor's saber, but it has nothing to do with the ancient emperor. After the end of the ancient epoch, a cultivator visited the ancient emperor's ruins and comprehended some of the ancient emperor's legacy's power. That's how he refined this magic treasure. "But you actually have two magic treasures," Marquis Jing Huan said. "I naturally know that this saber is not of the ancient emperor's lineage, but the scriptures it contains are the same lineage as the ancient emperor's legacy. With this treasure, that little beauty's lightning tribulation will be much smoother. After she forms her nascent soul, her cultivation will also be much more convenient." "I have indeed come with sincerity," the old man said coldly. The old man said coldly, "If you were sincere, you wouldn't have taken advantage of me in this void battlefield and trapped me first." Marquis Jing Huan smiled carelessly. "If not, how could we speak so calmly? Actually, you should be able to tell that this is one of my clones. If my true body was here, even a primordial soul cultivator like you wouldn't be able to do anything to me. My marriage with the bloodline of the ancient emperor is beneficial to everyone. Although the ancient emperor's orthodoxy is powerful, I'm not weak either. My potential is limitless, and I'm a suitable candidate for your marriage. If you agree, I'm willing to welcome you as the first wife. If you don't agree, I will just take her away." Marquis Jing Huan smiled. "I'll say it again. As long as my true body is here, you won't be able to do anything to me." As he spoke, his expression suddenly changed slightly, and he turned in another direction. A beam of fiery light flashed in front of him, and 3 figures appeared. The one in front was dressed in purple and black. It was Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan first looked at the center of the lightning tribulation, then at Marquis Jing Huan. He said coldly, "It doesn't matter who comes. You can't take anyone away. If you don't scram now, you will never be able to leave." That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.